Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to Crime and Sports early and ad-free right now. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
In the depths of an Atlanta forest, a clash between activists and authorities ends in tragedy. I'm Matthew Scher, and on my new podcast, We Came to the Forest, we expose the hidden truths behind a shootout that left one activist dead and countless lives forever changed. Binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest ad-free on Wondery Plus.
Everybody, and welcome back to Crime and Sports.
Yay!
Haha, yay indeed, Jimmy. Yay indeed. My name is James Pietragallo. I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Jimmie Whisman.
Thank you, folks, so much for joining us on another crazy edition of Crime and Sports.
Yeah.
Can't stop, won't stop.
That's what it is.
Hope you enjoyed Conor McGregor and his saga of...
What the fuck?
That's not over.
His saga of unfinished business.
But that is not over. He will be back.
Right.
Between him and Gervonta Davis, that's a hell of a fight to see who's going to get the coveted, the also coveted, most likely to get another episode Scummy Award. I'm waiting.
Silver handcuffs.
The silver handcuffs you get. They're very, very nice. So we have a lot of crazy before you today, too. We have a wrestling episode.
Hey!
So we have crazy and steroids and brain damage and all sorts of fun stuff mixed up into one. And
Great.
It's a lot of fun, and we can't wait for that. Very quickly before we get started, definitely head over to shutupandgivememurder.com. What's there, you may ask? Tickets.
I'd love to know.
Come see us for a live show for Small Town Murder. It's a lot of fun. It's a comedy show. We're not going to sit there and have a lecture about a murder. It's all comedy with pictures and everything else and a crazy murder story. So come out and see that. August the 12th, Chicago is the next one with tickets available. Get your tickets right now. It will be our biggest show ever, Chicago. So come hard. Also, come hard, I just said. Come hard, Chicago. Come hard, come fast, come long. Tense. Come ropes, Chicago. Come with us. That'll be great. Wow. Jesus Christ. So anyway, come see us in Chicago. No other gross things. And then also tickets available for Dallas, Philly, Charlotte, Atlanta, and just a couple left for D.C. So get in there and get the rest of those and get that bad boy sold out. So, yes, do that. Shutupandgivememurder.com. Patreon.com/crime and sports is where you get all the bonus material.
Right.
That's where you want to be. Anybody who is $5 or above, a mere cup of coffee.
Right.
You are going to get access to all our bonus material, Crime and Sports, Small Town Murder, all of it. New stuff, whole back catalog, couple hundred episodes to binge on of bonus stuff, and new episodes every other week. This week is no different. What you're going to get this week, it's a fun week this week. We're going for just crazy and disaster and wild stuff. Crime and Sports, we're going to talk about theme park disasters that have happened.
Great.
We talked about
those.
Defunct theme parks before. Now we're going to do theme park disasters, which is a lot of fun. A roller coaster that killed 100 people flew off. We'll talk all about it. Then for Small Town Murder, we're keeping it equally chaotic with prison riots. We're going to talk about some of the craziest prison riots in the history of the world. So it's going to be so much fun there. That is patreon.com/crime and sports is where you get all of that.
Chaos.
We can't wait for the chaos. And you'll get a shout out at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Which is always fun. Keep an ear out or an eye out for your stupid opinions, which is coming as soon as we can humanly, legally bring it to you. It's all we have. It's all good. It's coming. It's all smoothed out. It's not. It's all business stuff that we have nothing to do with. The show is done. We're waiting to put it out. So thank you for your patience. We can't wait to give that to you, and we'll let you know when that is happening. So that said, let's get right to the crazy, Jimmy.
Okay.
Let's get to it with a guy, a very well-loved guy this week, the opposite of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's a guy...
He's got his audience.
His currency is I'm an asshole, though.
Yeah.
Like, if you hate him, it's because he's Conor McGregor, and if you like him, it's because he's Conor McGregor. You know what I mean? Like, you either like an asshole or you don't like an asshole. You either like a douchebag with a Hitler haircut or you don't. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Whereas this guy, there is very, very, very few. Like, you could scour the earth and have a hard time finding many people who don't like this guy. He's just one of those guys that's beloved by everybody he ever worked with, beloved by the entire Oklahoma University Sooner fan base especially. Huge stuff. It is Steve Dr. Death Williams. Remember him? The wrestler? No. Don't remember Dr. Death? You'd know him if you saw him, probably.
I thought you were going to say Cold Austin.
No. He's coming too. By the way, I'll blow one of the mistaken identities right now. His name is also Steve Williams, by the way.
Is it really?
Yeah, so doing research, poor Ian on this one. Wrestler Steve Williams, you're coming up with.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you got to mix in his DUI, and this one slapped his wife, and then this one didn't. And there's a lot here, but this is a different Steve Williams. This is Stephen Franklin Williams, better known as Dr. Death, which is, of course, a pretty goddamn good nickname for a wrestler.
Sure is, yeah.
And you got to have a certain gravitas to pull that kind of shit off.
You got to be pretty tough.
You got to be pretty tough. And this is one of the guys where, wrestling aside, because, you can say there's a lot of guys, and wrestling is one of those things where it used to be a lot of tough guys and shit like that. But wrestling, some of the guys are performers now. You know what I mean? They're not tough guys. I don't know if they got in a fight, if they'd be able to fight. They can pretend to fight.
Athletes.
Yeah. I don't know if they know how to throw a real punch, if they ever have before, but they know how to throw one that, looks fun in the ring. Shit like that. But, this is one of these guys where no one questioned that this guy's a really bad motherfucker, honestly, because his college sports career is legendary for being just one of the toughest people that's ever existed. So we'll talk about him here. He's born May 14th, 1960. He's from Lakewood, Colorado. He's born.
Is that right?
He is a Lakewood fella here. Yeah. He grows up. He's a big guy. When he gets full grown, he's about 6'2". Not when he's born, obviously. Sure. That would have been tough on his mom.
Poor lady. Yeah.
Poor lady. Jesus Christ. 6'1", and he's 285 pounds.
Jesus.
He's one of these guys that if you look at him, if he turns sideways, you're like, holy fuck, your chest is. You're deep. He's a deep motherfucker. His torso is thick. Yeah. You look at him and you go, how can I hurt a person like that? He's got no neck, and what little neck he has is the same size as his head. So there's no, it's just connected to him, and he's just so strong looking.
Looks like that X-Men, what was that thing's called? I don't even remember.
Oh, God. I don't know. I don't remember either. I know you're talking. I can see him.
God damn. You know what I'm talking about?
I can see the thing, but I don't remember. Yeah.
I don't remember his
name. I don't know.
Argonaut?
I don't know. Maybe.
He was the bad guy in the second Deadpool.
I think there's a He-Man character that relates to this as well, but that's even farther back in my memory, so I have no idea.
Very similar.
Very similar.
Big round head, no neck.
Yeah, no neck, yeah. Put a mullet on that, and you got Steve Williams here. So he's born and raised in Lakewood. He's got 3 older siblings.
Yeah.
Here, he's the youngest of the 4, obviously. He's got his brothers are Jeff and Jerry. He's got a sister named Dottie as well. And he was born, he said he was only 7 pounds when he was born. So not even a huge,
right?
some of these huge guys, they were 13 pounds.
Than that.
Yeah, I was too. It's not bad. He got named after his grandfather, so his father didn't junior him, which is nice.
Very good.
His parents are Dottie and Gerald Williams, which is interesting. Oh, no, his sister's name isn't Dottie. His mother's name is Dottie, not his sister. So,
what's his sister's name?
Don't know. I know his brothers are Jeff and Jerry. I got that.
Okay.
So he said that he had a nice house, grew up on a big 4-bedroom brick house. They had a big 1-acre lot, nice place, grew up in a very comfortable environment, not rich or anything, but just 60s middle class, suburban.
Doing fine. Yeah.
Doing fine, whatever. He said he was raised Protestant. They went to church, but not, they weren't religious about it. You know what I mean? Okay. Not crazy. Didn't do anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Didn't do anything like that here. So he's
they went on holidays.
That's what I mean. They'd go, we're going to go to church this Sunday, but it wasn't like, oh my God, we're going to be late for church and everyone will talk about us. It wasn't. Okay. They didn't go Mormon about it or anything. So that's nice. His parents didn't meet until his parents were both in the Navy.
Mom too, huh?
Which is just every time if I read any woman in the Navy, I know there's tons of women in the Navy, it's very normal, but all I think of is Overboard. You were in the Navy. I was in the armed forces.
You gotta remember.
You were in the Navy. You were in the Navy. The way he says it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I automatically think of Goldie Hawn when I picture Steve Williams' mom. So they were they met at a naval academy at the hospital at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and fell in love and got married in 2 months. So, and they were still together, 50 years later. So that's yesterday. I don't know if they're still alive now, but all right. He said his mom was like average size, not a huge lady or big lady or anything. He loves his mom. He said his mom worked a lot, worked at the Copper Kitchen restaurant as a bookkeeper.
Oh, and after the Navy, huh?
After the Navy, retires from the Navy. And he said she came to all of his athletic events, which is a lot. Football and wrestling. In high school, he does like every sport. He's very athletic.
I've had enough of it.
It's a lot.
I've had an ass full of
these kids' games.
Athletics, high school. And it's becoming more and more and more. It's so
imagine
crazy.
If they liked more than one sport.
Oh, my God, I cannot.
This is at least it's just one thing you have to know. These people, what are we doing today? Track and field? Do you really need to do track and field? Really?
Pick one, track or field.
You got a shot put and football and wrestling, and that's enough already. Come on.
Holy shit. How do you letter in 3 different sports? How do you have the time?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, he didn't care about school at all, as he'll say later on. We'll talk about. He said his dad, Gerald, was the hardest working person he's ever known in his life. He loves his dad. He said his dad's an entrepreneur and owned a flower shop. Listen to how diverse his father is. Not diverse, but just a eclectic man. He owned, how many people own a flower shop and a tire store at the same time? Yeah. Think about that. Those are the 2 most different businesses I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
And who has interest in both those things? Gerald Williams does.
You get snow tires this year. You get free daisies.
That is awesome. And he also worked, he had 2 stores and also worked for a computer company. Oh. And he said he was always just trying to make more money for the family. His dad was on the city council as well.
The pretty council?
The pretty council. They call it the pretty city council. So had to be pretty good looking to be on it, Pretty hot shit.
How do you do it? I don't understand how they do this.
I don't know how these people can leave their house at 7 a.m. and get home at like 10 o'clock at night and not go, oh my God, I'm going to kill everybody, and just get up and do it again the next day.
Do it tomorrow? What?
Yeah, you could do it once, and then you'd be like, I'm never doing that day again. This guy's every day. Sounds like a fucking nightmare. So we have, by the way, a lot of this information comes from Steve Williams' own book. He wrote a book, and in 2008, I believe, the book came out. So that's out there to buy, and it's very interesting. If you're interested in his life here, I mean, it really goes into a lot of detail. But the best parts of this book are people's, because he'll be telling a story, and then they'll just be in a different font. There'll be a story about him from quoted by somebody else. You know what I mean?
A book that has breaks in the action?
Breaks to kind of give you context of something. What it all makes sense. Yeah. He'll be talking about we went and got in this bar fight, and then they'll cut to a quote of somebody talking about how Steve Williams is in bar fights. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Stuff like that. So this is his brother Jerry on Steve here. He says, Steve is one of a kind. From the time he was a toddler, Steve was unique. I remember when he was 9 months old, Mom put him in a middle bedroom and a half door so she could let him play safely in a manageable area. So it had one of those farm doors almost. Right. It did not take long, however, for Steve to figure out that all he had to do was get over the half door and he'd gain access to freedom. Although he did not walk, this Hercules of a child would support himself leaning against the bed and rocking it back and forth like a baby gorilla until it had moved across the floor and up against the half door.
He took the bed for a walk to the door.
Couldn't walk yet. This is pre-walking, so under a year old here to do that.
He couldn't walk, and he taught the bed to walk.
Wow. At that point, he would use the bed to catapult himself over the half door to the other side. Holy shit. The only problem is that he would land on his head and start screaming bloody murder. This might explain some future actions.
Yeah.
He must have been successful doing this routine a dozen times until Dad added a 3/4 door and his efforts were finally curtailed.
He can't get that high.
Can't get that high.
12 times on his head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's probably got permanent brain damage. I'm going to fix the door.
Yeah. Dad, it's too late.
He is doing a lot, though. He's got 3 jobs and a flower shop and a tire store, and he's got to vote.
The door tomorrow.
He's got to vote on whether to repave Main Street because it's got that pothole. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening. He says he loved to go fishing with his dad. He says, quote, he would take me and my brothers to great many fishing places in Colorado. When I was 8 years old, just the two of us camped and fished at a secluded lake for hours, away from everything. I was so excited to be there with my dad. I got up early just to get the fish, just like he taught me. Yeah. Okay. One time in the woods, I ran to use the bathroom, and a branch from a tree ripped open my eyelid.
Oh, God, Jesus.
That's horrifying. I started to cry and scream because blood was everywhere.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I'm a child and all.
Right.
I added that part myself.
I'm
but
a baby.
As my dad tended to me, I begged him to take me to a hospital and then home. You know, have my eye put back together.
Fix this.
Holding me tight, Dad said, "Stephen, we aren't going anywhere." He calmly cleaned the cut and made a butterfly stitch to close the wound. After I calmed down, we went back to fishing.
Closed his eye.
With a...
You've got a hole in your eyelid.
No, I got a Band-Aid, Steve. We're going to fish more.
Boy, it'll
Steve,
dry. It'll heal.
Steve, the muskies are biting. We have to get back in there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there are giant trout in here, son. We're not leaving. Nobody's here.
The crappies are going, so they're
all
strong.
ours.
It's all ours, but you don't see anybody else here, do you? Come on. The worms will all be dead if we leave.
I can't see it all, Dad. I have a fucking hole in my eyelid.
Oh, my God. Well, you should be able to see extra then, even when you close your eyes. Should be fine. You're bionic now. So he goes on to say, though I was his baby boy, he was a disciplinarian and showed me no favors. The youngest of 4 children, I was bar none and a wild kid. I thought I was invincible and could get away with anything. Jesus. I also got my share of whippings. My dad used to whip me bare bottom. Wow. Good Lord. That sounds...
Pulled his ass out to do it?
Yeah, that sounds both violent and weirdly, you know, some kind of sexual fetish at the same time.
Sort of erotic, yeah.
I don't like that at all. I remember one time I had just turned 8. My father was getting ready to whip me for something I had done. Getting ready. That sounds like he's got to get his equipment out. He's putting his apron on. He
took a shower for this.
Yeah, puts his bouquet making apron on. This time, however, I told my dad no. I was tired of being beaten. You should have seen his reaction. Unfortunately, my request didn't stop his attempt.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So as my dad went to strike me, I grabbed his leg and rolled over on him. He did a single leg on his dad when he tried to
I'll just snap your fucking femur.
That's amazing. I quickly snatched the belt from his hand and said, "I've had enough of this. I'm a man. Enough."
How old was he?
8.
Jesus.
He was 8 when this was happening.
I'm a man.
I'm a man. Well, he did just take his father down and disarm him. So you know what? I think he kind of is a man at this point.
Yeah.
He single-legged his dad and then took the fucking weapon out of his hand. That's a man.
He's at least more of a man than his father.
No shit. He said, "I'm sure my dad was laughing inside, but I never got a whipping again."
Oh.
Well, he knows. Now he's not just taking a beating. You got to really... You can't go 4 beers in with this kid. You got to be sober and have your shit together.
I think that is the line you draw with punishment on your child, though, is when... If he can turn the beating on you,
oh, it's over then. Yeah,
you are no longer in charge of this house.
I guess not. At least of not of the beatings anymore.
Simba's the king now.
You start sending Steve to dole out the beatings now. This is good, Steve. This is good. This is his mom, Dottie. Quote, "Stephen was a very adventurous kid, and he gave us a headache every once in a while." Okay. Sounds like more than that. He said, every once in a while. Yeah. He said, "I should have known that Steve was going to be a professional wrestler. The way he would climb over that fence." There's a fence. He talks about his parents had a local carpenter put up a wooden fence around his backyard, so he couldn't get out of the backyard. It was to, like a dog, they fenced him in.
It wasn't to keep people out. It was to keep him in.
It was to keep their rabid child in the yard. That's amazing. And he would eventually figure out how to climb the fence. So His mother said how he would climb that fence and keep getting hurt and cut on up all the way over. We would watch him climb and fall, and no matter what, he was determined to get over that fence. He was one tough little cookie.
No shit.
He's a determined little shit, let's just say.
Yeah, that's what he is.
By the time he was 13, he said he weighed 260 pounds.
At 13?
But fat, not muscular.
There's
he was
no
real,
way that's a muscular 13-year-old.
No. He was just a big, heavy kid. He said his brother, everybody at school would call him Fatty or Fatso. That was his nickname. He just took it because everyone did it. Everyone said. When the girls are like, "Hi, Fatty," you're like, all right, what am I going to do? Punch Sally in the face? I can't do that. So, geez, yeah, that's the problem. Well, yeah, when it's everybody, you got to go, okay, maybe it's me. Fuck, I don't know.
Maybe I'm a fatso.
I guess I'm a fatso, and you walk away. That sucks. That's what makes kids feel like shit. It happens.
Yeah.
So his brother, Jerry, got engaged and said that if you lose 60 pounds, because he was in his wedding, he said Steven's going to be one of his ushers, so he had to have a tuxedo. He said, if you lose 60 pounds by the time our wedding comes around, I'll buy you a new stereo system and all this shit for your room. And so Steve was like, I lost 60 pounds. Hardcore. He was like,
tomorrow.
Yeah, he was like, I was jacked. I couldn't wait to have a new stereo. So he lost 60 pounds. So that was the way he did weight loss. He has a strange way to keep weight off in college, too, we'll talk about here.
Oh, boy.
So here he is talking about his school days, high school. Quote, I wasn't the brightest kid on the block. Though I liked history, my favorite subjects in school were gym and lunch, which is don't have books, either of those. I went to school to play sports and hang out with my friends. I liked school, but often found it very difficult. That's a lot of falling on your head, too, is the problem there.
Yeah.
Maybe. In elementary school, I had to take special classes. It was hard for me to stay focused on things that I had little interest in. I would often find myself easily distracted by sights and sounds and had a hard time concentrating for long periods of time. Yeah. That sounds, Today I would probably be diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Yeah, that sounds pretty by the book, honestly.
Is he a doctor now? Because he just nailed that one.
He is Dr. Death, Steve Williams. So, yes, he is, Steve. What do you think? They just, hold on. What do you think, wrestling's fake and they just give you nicknames? If you're called doctor, you must go to medical school. You got to be legit. You have to. It takes a long time. That's why nobody named doctors ever wrestled before the age of 30. It just takes so long for the schooling. Right. You got to know you want to do it from a young age. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
Morgan went through school. He did.
He did. I mean, Dr. Dre, I can't say that about him.
I don't know.
I don't think so. So he says about wrestling that he wasn't really into wrestling as a kid, like professional wrestling. He said, I never intended to become a professional wrestler. In fact, I never attended a live pro wrestling event until after college. So he wasn't into it at all. He said at times, usually before our Saturday football games, I watched local wrestling on TV. I would watch the old AWA wrestling show, Vern Gagne and all that, which featured two of my favorite wrestlers, Mad Dog and Butcher Vachon, the Vachon brothers. And Mad Dog is very famous. Butcher didn't last the test of time for some reason in fame. The only thing he's really famous for now, I mean, he was great, but Mad Dog lived on as this legend, and Butcher didn't quite as much. But Butcher is Luna Vachon's father. Oh, Luna Vachon, the crazy-looking broad.
Sure.
Yeah, that's her father there. Their in-ring antics would motivate me to bully my opponents on the football field. Oh. So he wanted to, that sort of deal. He had a Jeep here. His first car, he said, was a 1942 Willys Jeep.
Really?
Yes. An old Army-type Jeep and a classic. That's a cool fucking ride, yeah.
It's the ones that the 42, they weren't available to civilian ones. Yeah, that's an actual Army
Yeah,
Jeep.
They probably sold it off surplus later on or something. He said it had a steel frame and was built like a tank. I bought it for $389 and fixed it up real nice with new tires and wall-to-wall blue shag carpet. Oh, boy, the 70s.
Blue shag carpet in that thing?
He was 15, so this is 1975, so that's the pinnacle of cool in 75. You're like, I'm going to get so many blowjobs in this car. Look at this carpet. Oh, my God.
But I don't think I don't think those had roofs to them.
Doesn't matter.
He's going to soak that fucking
Doesn't
carpet.
matter. Still hot shit. It's the 70s, man. You know what? Sometimes your carpet gets soaked, whether from rain, bodily fluids. You never know, man. Something. Though I was only 15, I was getting it ready to roam the streets as soon as I turned 16.
Yeah.
One day, I decided to take my Willie for a spin. That sounds like a British term for jerking off.
I did that when I was 15 a lot.
Oh, I took my Willie for a spin, I did. Oh, took my Willie for a spin, didn't it? Doesn't that sound like that? Totally. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Though it wasn't completely road ready. Well, that doesn't sound smart. I don't have a license and my car's not ready to be driven. Let's take it out for a spin. Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Without a license and with my friend Nick Hammer, Jesus, I hope he became a wrestler. He doesn't even have to change his name. It's awesome. I pushed the ignition button and headed into town. I didn't make it but a few blocks when the steering wheel came off as I turned a corner and we hit a telephone pole.
Oh, shit.
His steering wheel came off. That's amazing.
So it's a stick then, probably, because my Volkswagen used to do that, and you'd have to you'd have to get the splines lined up to get the wheel back on.
Well, you're in deep
scary.
shit. Yeah,
it's so scary.
My dad told me about a car he had that did that one time, and he was like, "Oh shit!"
I forgot that the nut that holds the steering wheel on, because there's a shaft that comes out that's threaded, and you put the nut on it, and it holds the steering wheel. I didn't put it on, so the first time I took it out, I went to shift, and when you shift, you pull back on the steering wheel, and you don't realize it. Yeah. So I went around the corner, and I shifted and yanked, and my wheels were turned. I was like, oh, my God.
Oh, no.
Trying to line up the splines to get the wheel back on. I got it on within another second, and I would have hit a pole too. It was close.
Well, they hit a telephone pole. And by the way, I don't know if this is fixable at this point in time, but the in the book it says telephone pole POLL. So I don't know if the editors can fix that in the digital edition. It can because I got the digital edition, so I mean you can obviously in print, but you can fix that there. You don't want that in there.
No.
Yeah. The impact knocked us back about 20 yards because it's steel. It doesn't go around the pole. It bounced off the pole.
Yeah.
It didn't do any damage to the Jeep. That's an awesome car.
That's why they had them in the military.
But once my father found out, you can only imagine the damage done to me. Yeah. Not too long there. He probably took the beating because he deserved it on that one. He was like, I deserve this one. No, this is...
I won't even fight back this time.
I pulled the fucking steering wheel off. That was real stupid of me to do there. That's... No, you go ahead and beat me. Not too long after, on a Saturday afternoon, my mom and dad had left the keys in their car and gone out.
Uh-oh.
Slightly hungover. He's 15. Slightly hungover, I decided to go out for a joyride. A hungover 15-year-old. There I was, this 15-year-old kid cruising the neighborhood. As I approached the corner, I inadvertently hit the gas pedal instead of the brake.
Oh, what are you, fucking 87 years old?
Jesus Christ, I was going to say, how old are you, 15 or 90? I approached... Wow, I jumped the curve, not curb, by the way, it says in the book, too. Another misspelling. Come on, editors of this book. Mowed down 2 trees, smashed through a fence, and slammed into someone's flower bed. Jesus Christ. I quickly tried to back up and hightail it out of there. Oh, my God. As I pressed the gas, flowers and dirt went everywhere.
It's like Clark Griswold.
That's amazing. It's probably raining down upon him if you're going to reverse, too.
Yeah.
I wasn't moving. I was stuck. The owner of the house, who knew my family and me, came out, running out, yelling, stop, shut off the engine. Jesus Christ. I was scared, and the only thing going through my mind was jail. I got out of the car and started begging for the owner to cut me a break. I was crying like a baby. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw my older brother, Jeff, riding by on his 10-speed bike.
You got a bike, Jeff? I got the car.
I took the car out, so you should have done that, Jeff. You didn't look in the ignition for the keys, stupid. I ran toward Jeff, screaming for his help. Jeff was laughing his butt off, as anyone would be laughing at their younger brother for doing this. Ha ha, Dad's going to kick the shit out of you. I kept begging Jeff until he finally stopped and sarcastically said, good luck, Stephen. He took off laughing all the way home. I didn't help him at all. Have a good one.
See you at home.
Wow. Needless to say, the punishment I received from my parents was nothing to laugh about. I was grounded for an entire month. That seems light for doing that, honestly.
Yeah, for crashing the car into a neighbor's house.
It's not even your car, that you don't have permission to drive, that you're hungover,
Too
you're
young
15.
to be driving.
There's a lot of factors here.
In the 1980s, a rosé swept the country.
Hey, Mike, I really like this white Zinfandel.
Well, good. Now put it down. We're going to try another one.
White Zin became America's top-selling wine. But most don't know that this sweet drink has a sour history. What began in 1986 with counterfeit bottles,
a big fraud, a multi-million-dollar fraud,
sent investigators chasing one of the most powerful families in the business, the Licciardis. But the closer the feds got to them, the more dangerous things became.
It's a story of deceit.
At the time, I was paranoid.
Threats.
You touch my kids, I will kill you.
And murder.
With a .22 caliber bullet to the head.
What started with a scheme to mislabel wine spilled into a blood-soaked battle for succession. Welcome to Bloodvines. You can binge listen to Bloodvines exclusively and ad-free on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
He was hip-hop's biggest mogul, the man who redefined fame, fortune, and the music industry.
The first male rapper to be honored on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Sean Diddy Combs.
Diddy built an empire and lived a life most people only dream about.
Everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, that's what's up.
But just as quickly as his empire rose, it came crashing down.
Today I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution.
I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. I'm disgusted. I'm so sorry.
Until you're wearing an orange jumpsuit, it's not real. Now it's real.
From his meteoric rise to his shocking fall from grace, from law and crime, this is the rise and fall of Diddy. Listen to the rise and fall of Diddy exclusively with Wondery Plus.
So he says, quote, I loved to this is great coming from a child at the time. I loved to drink and party. Loved it. Started laughing. I couldn't even get that out. Every Friday night, the boys and I would go to Lakewood Park or another facility to shoot the breeze, chase women, and get drunk.
Chase women?
This is fifth. Yeah, this is pre-adulthood here. That is wild. Although we were all underage, I never had a hard time getting alcohol. I bought my first beer at 12 years old. I was the biggest guy around and would literally cart the keg to and from the party. You just carry it. And the other thing about Steve Williams, when you look at him, when you look at his beard, you go, oh, he's had that since he was 10. It's one of those beards where you're like, he's a 10. It's a good beard. It's thick. It's a, anytime he has a beard or anything, it's a thick, big mustache. I mean, he's a man. His lots of testosterone pushing hair out of him. He said, one time the police came to the park and raided our party. Man, I ran away as fast as I could, carrying that keg on my shoulder. How fast you can run.
Running with a keg.
That's hilarious.
Unbelievable.
That's funny. I also experimented with marijuana. Okay. I didn't do it often because it affected my athletics. Sports were the number one priority in my life. But some of the older kids got me stoned, and I kind of like the thrill of the forbidden.
Sure. Yeah.
Sounds like he likes to do shit he's not allowed to do. Yeah. When I was 12 years old, I bought my first bag of pot, or so I thought. I approached one of the stoners at school and asked him for a bag. They said, sure, dude, meet me after school and bring $40. Oh. $40, a lot of money in 1972.
Yeah, that's a
you got like a
bag of weed.
Fucking like an ounce back then?
Right.
I said, okay, dude, I'll see you then. After we made the exchange, the boys and I went to the tunnel, a place behind the school where everyone went to smoke. Excited about getting high, we opened the bag. To our surprise, it wasn't marijuana, but oregano.
Yeah.
I was pissed, but it taught me to make wiser drug purchases in the future.
Yeah.
That's an important lesson for every young man and woman out there is you have to learn how to make wiser drug purchases. Know what drugs you're buying. Make sure they're real.
Have a good look at it before you buy it. Don't buy anything too shaky.
Take a whiff. Yeah. If it's oregano, you should have felt that it was a little too mushy for a bag of weed anyway. So
if it's all shake, don't buy that.
Don't buy that. Especially for $40 back then. That's like fucking $300 now or something. So
half the thrill is breaking it up.
Yeah, you got nothing. Just pour it out. Yeah. So in sports, though, he loved it. He said his older brothers taught him sports, and he said, I excelled in every sport I tried. Jerry was a ski instructor, so of course I learned how to ski. I loved going down the beautiful Colorado mountains. I guess if you live in Lakewood, you might as well.
It's so beautiful.
You might as well take up some skiing there.
Yeah.
I was also good in baseball. I was a decent pitcher and center fielder. I received my first baseball trophy at 10 years old for batting over 500 for the season.
500 on the season.
Not bad. Well, he's huge. He's playing 10 years old, and he's 220, and the other kids are 86 pounds. It's kind of He said, and then there was football. Football was my passion. I grew up wanting to be a professional football player. Football was all I could ever think about, and I was very good at it. I started playing the sport at 8 years old. Since I was bigger than all the kids my age, and even many of the older ones, I spent 1 year in Pee Wee or Little League. They quickly elevated me to the heavyweight league, where some of the older kids would pick on me and tease me. But their taunts only made me more determined. No one was going to intimidate me. I would hit them even harder. Okay, well, he tells this story. When I was 10 years old and playing in the heavyweight division, one of the assistant coaches on my team decided to do the bull of the ring drill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You stand in the middle. Yep.
Yep. The drill consisted of 12 to 15 players making a circle around one guy. The coach called a player from the circle to hit the player in the middle, tackling him to the ground. This time I was the one in the middle. The coach kept calling different players' numbers. One by one, guys from the circle would nail me. I was getting hit left and right. I don't know what he was trying to prove. At the end, he had all the players dogpile on top of me.
He's everybody.
Yeah, come on, guys. He's a child. Get him. Get him. So he went to Lakewood High School, and he was on the track and field team, played football, and wrestled all 4 years.
Awesome.
Not too bad at all here. He said, when I was a senior in high school, I was the most highly recruited football player in the state. That sounds awesome. Damn. Lakewood High School has a long football tradition going back to its most successful coach, Tom Hancock. In 15 seasons, Coach Hancock compiled 137, 36, and 3 record.
That's not bad.
It's pretty damn good. His credentials led him to be inducted into the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame in 1969. Not too shabby. He said, throughout my entire junior and high school wrestling career, I was undefeated. But then he'll say his record in the next paragraph, and it's not undefeated, so I don't know what he's talking about. Wrestling in the heavyweight division, I was known as the pinning artist because I pinned everyone I wrestled. Because of my fine high school wrestling record, on April 7, 1978, I was selected to represent the U.S. team in a match against the Pennsylvania All-Stars at the Pittsburgh Press Wrestling Classic. Jesus. Okay. At the time, the event was heralded by many as the Rose Bowl of high school wrestling. And of course, I won my matches pinning all my opponents. In high school, I was a wrestling machine. Nobody could come close to pinning me. This was due to my work, a lot to my work ethic and training, where I held school records for squatting, 575 pounds, deadlifting, 800 pounds, and bench press, 375 pounds. Jesus, not bad. He said, my high school wrestling career concluded with a 77-4-1 record.
Holy.
That seems pretty good. Jesus Christ. I won 14 tournaments and was enshrined in my high school's Hall of Fame. Fuck. I was a Colorado State champion both by junior and senior year and still hold the following Lakewood High School wrestling records. Best overall record, 76, 77, 78. Most takedowns, 77, 78. Most pins, 1977, 78. And most outstanding wrestler, 76, 77, 78.
Wow. Sophomore, junior, senior year, he was killing it.
Crushing everybody. Man, that's why he felt pretty invincible.
Yeah.
He's hungover and he's still doing all this. He said in 1978, the NCAA policy was that recruits, because they're college recruiting, they're all trying to get them, could only make 6 campus visits total. You can only go between these schools. Now you can visit upon a bunch, I think.
6 total of all different schools.
I think, yes, 6 total. So that could be a couple to 1, 1 to 6 different schools. My visit to the University of Arizona was interesting. The recruiter showed me one heck of a good time, although no money ever exchanged hands. Flaunting food, alcohol, jewelry, and women, it was made explicitly and implicitly clear that Dr. Death would be, quote, taken care of if I signed with their school.
Incredible.
That's U of A. The coaches and staff were very polite, and they all treated me with respect. I also got to know some of the players. A few members of the team also took me out that night to party. I was so drunk that I got into a fight. There's a guy sitting in his car saying something that I can't even recall. That's a good reason to fight.
I don't remember what it was. It was, and I'm not even on the team.
No,
I'm recruiting.
I'm just hammered and fucking younger than everyone else here. Hanging out. I went over to his car and had a few words and smacked him in the face. As the guy went to get out of his car, I held the door. Unfortunately, I had these slick new dress shoes on, and as he pushed, I slipped on the gravel in the parking lot and fell face down. After that, I'm sorry to say, I got up and beat the living crap out of the guy. There was blood everywhere. To escape the police, we took off back to campus. It took less than 24 hours for the city of Tucson to feel the wrath of Dr. Death.
Oh, my.
So these are just common stories with him that happen all the time.
Never got caught for that.
Didn't get caught. He ended up going home. So and they would all cover him for it. He's a U of A recruit. They'd probably go, I'm sure the guy deserved it back then. Think about that. In the fucking 70s, they'd probably do that now. So he decides to go to the University of Oklahoma.
Okay.
OU he's going to here. So he's a Sooner here. He decides to go there. Barry Switzer is going to be his head coach, who is the future coach of the Cowboys there for a couple Super Bowls. And 1978, he is a redshirt year for him. Okay. So you have the option of redshirting your freshman, so then they actually have 5 years of eligibility. So you can have them on the team and be on practice and all that kind of shit, but they don't play games. So it saves a year of eligibility. He said, I was redshirted in my football in my freshman year because I was raw, and they wanted to bring me along slowly. They saw my potential, and since the offensive line was already in place, they thought it would be best if I sat out a year to learn the offense. I was allowed to wear number 76, and Coach Switzer would still let me practice with the team. So here's a teammate of his, Kelly Mitchell. Quote, Doc was the toughest man I've ever met. On the football field, he was a terror. Though Doc didn't memorize all the plays, he would make it up with his sheer strength and will. Everybody respected yet feared Doc. With the heart of a giant, his look was nonetheless intimidating. One time before practice, Barry Dittman, a senior and starting linebacker from Houston, was sitting in the locker room waiting to get his ankles taped and whatnot from the trainer. Doc, a freshman, came in and told Barry to move from his table. Barry, about 6 foot and weighing 205 pounds, was one tough hombre. A few of us nearby perked up and waited for Barry's decision. Within 60 seconds, Barry got up and moved. Doc claimed his table. In short, nobody messed with Dr. Death. Here's Mike Geary, another guy that's going to talk a lot about him. He says, Doc was naturally strong. He would easily bench press 480 pounds 10 times. Fuck. That's pretty strong. Combine that with his, this is pre-steroids too. Yeah. So combine that with his will, desire, and looks, and he was, without a doubt, the toughest man on the planet. He said Doc was one intimidating person. If you didn't know him, he would scare anyone, and if he raised his voice, forget about it. Well, then the doctors told Doc to pee in a when the doctors told Doc to pee in a cup, Doc barked no. The poor guy almost had a heart attack and simply said, "Okay, next." He didn't have to do the college drug tests because he said no. That's fucking awesome. Another incident that displayed Doc's intimidating presence was during his senior year. New recruits from around the country were coming to campus. During lunch, I came in with a bunch of the recruits. Doc was sitting alone at a table eating pounds of grub. His hair was long and looking like a creature right out of a science fiction movie. He paused from his food and glanced at me. Soon thereafter, I sat down with the recruits to eat. I noticed they kept eyeballing Doc. One of the recruits whispered, "Is he a senior?" And I said, "Yes, why?" And he said, "Well, we have all decided that if he isn't, we aren't coming to OU." They're all terrified of him.
We don't want to be here next year.
No, that guy's scary. So in 1979, he starts playing, and he's on the offense. He's an offensive guard. These 79 Oklahoma Sooners are 11-1 that season. So not too goddamn shabby. They go all the way to the Orange Bowl that year, where they beat Florida State 24-7. So that's a good year for a college football team. They end up third in the AP poll, in the final AP poll. So number 3 overall in the country. On that team, a really good running back named Billy Sims, who was a great NFL running back who ended up blowing out his knee eventually. And another guy that we're very familiar with, another running back, Stanley Wilson, is on this team with them. A Crime and Sports alumni.
Boy, does he love crack.
Oh, he loves crack. He hates Super Bowls, but loves crack. If you haven't heard this, it's an early episode. It's before we were even in a studio. So it's like our first year. It's episode 30-something. We did an episode about Stanley Wilson.
Cleveland
and
still hates him.
Wow, Cincinnati. Yeah, he blew the Bengals, ran out on the Super Bowl, climbed out of a window to smoke crack while the team was trying to they had 5 people watching him, and he just climbed out a window. So,
and it was a muddy Super Bowl, and he was the one that would have got all the running because
he was a mutter.
Yeah. And he cost the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's fucking amazing. So Billy Sims was the Heisman Trophy winner in 1978, and great. He was the first overall pick in the 1980 draft, too. So some big-time people on that team. So Kelly Mitchell, another, like we talked about from the team, he said, Doc and I were best of friends. My mom once found a bong in my room. My mom was also missing lots of butter from the refrigerator. These are individual sentences, by the way. My mom once found a bong in my room, period. My mom was also missing lots of butter from the refrigerator, period.
Who's eating butter as a
snack? Well, he said that Doc and I would get the munchies. Does that explain something to you? We would raid the kitchen
on butter?
and devour bread and butter, just rolling it on thick on the pieces of bread. My mom got concerned and asked my sister to check on the missing butter. Unbeknownst to me, she found my bong. Mom thought Doc and I were smoking butter with the bong. There's a bong.
She's oblivious.
Butter Bong Hits is the name of this episode. Absolutely, it's going to be Butter Bong Hits, but that is unfucking believable.
Are you smoking?
You're smoking. There's butter missing, and here's a smoking implement. You must be doing that.
You must be smoking with that. Hitting dabs of butter.
That's my grandmother, Italian grandma, one time. My Aunt Lisa and my cousin, her cousin, she's older than my aunt's cousin, Gilda. Anyway, they were smoking weed when they were teenagers, and somehow they got stoned and they left the bowl somewhere, a little metal weed pipe, left it somewhere, and my grandmother found it and freaked out completely. Crying, screaming, said, "Ma, you smoking the cocaine!"
Cocaine.
Smoking the cocaine. My poor girls. So
at least it's not butter. Geez.
At least it's not butter. So they teased. He went on to say they teased their mom about it. His mom about it all the time. He said, later I teased my mom by telling her everything is better with Blue Bonnet on it, which is an old
especially weed.
Especially weed. Oh, yeah, man, weed and butter together. Ooh-wee. Ever heard of weed butter? I invented it. So another thing, when he's in college, he said he had beef with Jack Bear, who was the equipment manager. This is Steve said this. Jack was one mean person, he says. We used to go back and forth all the time. He yelled at me and I yelled right back. He got so mad at me because I always asked for extra T-shirts and other OU football gear. He would scream, I'm not going to give you anything. You are stealing them anyway. The only thing you're going to do is sell them. He said, regardless, I always managed to attain extra OU football shirts.
He was selling them?
You don't understand. I've read so many books about old players that go through like these type of things, and every team, when they hire an equipment manager, they go, we have to find the crustiest, a man who defies time and space, someone who's 112 years old but mean as the day is long and just hates equipment and hates the players who use it. That's what we need. Every single one. He says the NCAA also came down hard on drug testing about then. At this time in my life, I was still 100% clean. Still, I didn't like the idea of them violating my privacy. When it was my turn to be tested, I simply refused. They never bothered to ask me to pee in a cup again. That was from when he scared the doctor.
Wow.
So 1980 OU here, they go 10-2 this year.
Oh.
And they go to the Orange Bowl again, and they beat Florida State 18-17 that year. So Florida State must be just hating them at this point.
A drubbing every time.
And OU finishes third in the AP poll again. So 2 years in a row at third in the AP poll. This year on the team, as well as Stanley Wilson being the starter, they bring in another running back who ends up making it to the NFL and has the best NFL name of all time, Buster Rhymes. That's a real person.
Is that?
Absolutely.
Is that right?
New York Giants had him for a while. Buster Rhymes. That's his name.
Do you think Trevor knows it?
Probably, because he's that age, and this guy played for the Giants, and he's from New York, so I assume he probably saw him and was like, "That's fucking awesome.
I'm taking it.
That's perfect. Hey, good. He did better with it than Buster Rhymes ever did.
Yeah.
Good for him. He's still around.
Heard of the other guy.
Heard of him a lot." He said, "My sophomore football year, this season, had its ups and downs. Though we finished the season 9-2 and captured a Big 8 championship, we were hoping to become national champions. He said, we started the season 1-0. He said, and then we hosted the non-ranked Stanford Cardinal. Maybe we were looking ahead to our Big 8 opener against Colorado, but with future Super Bowl MVP and Hall of Fame quarterback John Elway leading the attack, they upset us. on our home turf, 31-14.
How about that?
That was probably when he was, a sophomore or something, John Elway, too. So he talks about the Orange Bowl, and he says that he and a few of his teammates decided to take advantage of the Miami bar scene.
Oh, boy.
He said, "We drank the bars dry. Unlike 2 years earlier, this time we were wiser and more cautious of Coach Switzer's schedule and curfew. We were somehow able to keep track of the time and managed to stumble back to the team bus before it departed. Though it was only for a few miles from where we were, the bus ride to the hotel seemed to take forever. It also felt like we were on a roller coaster. With my stomach churning, I threw up only a few minutes into the drive.
Oh, God.
Hoping not to get anything on the floor, I used my brand new sports coat to catch the mess."
A blazer.
Oh, God. Jeez. Although I tried to be discreet, vomit oozed out of the jacket and leaked everywhere.
Oh,
can you imagine someone acting like they're just holding their jacket in their hand while like a stream of puke comes out of it? Liquor puke
just
from the night.
out of the sleeves.
Oh, my God. He's like, no, I'm good. And he's got shit crusting around his mouth. Oh, that's hilarious. I told the coaches I must have eaten too much barbecue.
Yeah.
Must have just ate too much, guys.
Or the whiskey.
Here's a way to keep some weight off from eating too much. He said, "I figured one way to lose the weight was to find a physically demanding job during the summer. I went to Wyoming and caught on with an oil company working the rigs. But that didn't last too long. It was very dangerous, and I felt I might injure myself. I didn't want it to affect my football career, so I decided to go to Lakewood and stay with my parents instead during the summer."
He was a roughneck for the summer.
I mean, he looks like an oil. When you look at the guy, you go, Jesus, there's an oil field missing their, their baddest dude right now.
There's an oil field struggling because
he's doing the work of four people.
Yeah.
So the 81 Sooners are 7-4-1 that year, so not quite as good. They go to the Sun Bowl that year against Houston. That's not as great at all.
No.
And they win 40-14 as they should. So there's that year though he's a starter finally. They make him start, and there's a big article about how he's a heavyweight wrestler, which we'll also talk about, and a guard, and he's going to be full-time lineman. They called him Williams, drew his first start last week after a kidney injury, forced guard Don Key out of football. Jesus.
Oh, fuck.
Wow. They said the Sooners moved the ball well, and Williams received excellent blocking grades. He said, "I enjoyed it up to a point. I don't enjoy losing," because they lost.
Nobody was, yeah.
Yeah, who the hell likes losing? He said, "I've been here 4 years, and I know the Aggies still can't beat us," talking about A&M. "There's only one Oklahoma team. We're too strong." Well, they're Texas A&M, so how the fuck would they be another? Okay, I don't get it. I don't understand what he's talking about.
Don't try to keep up, James.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. This is on me at this point.
He's a toddler with brain damage, for Christ's sake.
Jesus Christ. He's an Italian biker, for Christ's sake, James. What do you want? That's an inside joke, everybody.
It's the best thing ever, though.
It's the most brilliant thing Jimmie ever said in his life. To me, anyway. I mean, he might have said smarter things, but it was hilarious. It put a lot in perspective for me. And it probably saved me years of therapy, I think. Just having to me that go, all right, well, I have that to lean on and just...
Sometimes you just need a very dismissive sentence that sums everything up.
I do that for you a lot. This one, you really nailed it, though, I got to say. I got to really give you a lot of credit.
I love that.
So, he talks about, oh, my God, the guy he's replacing came after the other guy ruptured his right kidney.
Ruptured it?
Ruptured a kidney playing football. Wow.
You got to take a helmet to the kidney, right?
I guess so.
How the fuck else did that happen?
That's rough. Well, this is what Dr. Death says about that, which is wild. Quote, "I felt really bad. I just know how he feels. When I was in 9th grade, I injured my back. That's not a ruptured organ."
I know how he feels.
Wow. I know how he feels. I hurt my back one time. So I went to a specialist, and he told me I couldn't play football for the rest of my life. I put holes in the wall. I cried for 2 days. He said it was just 2 games ago that Don and I were talking about how great it's going to be with each of us playing his own position next year. It's a sad thing that it had to happen to such a hell of an athlete and a great guy.
Yeah.
And he says he wants to be a national champion. He said, I'm not playing to be all Big 8 or all American or to get drafted. I just want the national championship in football, just like with my wrestling career. That's all I want. Yeah. He said, and then they talked about this team you're playing has great linebackers and all this. And he said, I don't look at the names. I don't look at the size. I don't look at the number of tackles. I just go out there and play one-on-one and try to do my best.
Fuck 'em. I want to win.
Fuck them. I don't care.
Yeah.
Here's from Mike Geary. This is fun. Quote, one afternoon, Doc and I were having a beer at an adult establishment, an adult entertainment establishment near campus, a strip club. Titty bar. Everyone in the place knew and liked Doc. And we're terrified of him. You should have there. Doc and I were simply chit-chatting and minding our own business. All of a sudden, a couple of fraternity guys started making smart talk. You jocks think you're so tough. I'm sure it was the beer talking, he says. Well, I guess so.
This man is enormous. You don't say shit like that to him.
No. You look at this guy, you'd be the last guy you'd ever think to fuck it with. Like,
he may think he's tough, but looking at him, I think he's tough too.
Yeah, he's real goddamn tough. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is what I like about old-timey wrestlers. Like, I want to look at a wrestler and go, man, that guy would kick the shit out of me. That's what I want to look at. I want to look at two guys who can kick the living shit out of me, fight each other. That's what I want to say. You know what I'm saying? The better, like if you're a heel, it works. If you're like the chicken shit heel of the old timey, you could be like, then the thing was like, I bet I could kick that fucking guy's ass and he still gets in there and does shit. I hate that guy. You know, that's another thing that works well. But, you know, you got to look like, this guy looks like he'd kill you. So Doc, however, one to never take crap from anyone, got up from his stool and headed to these pretty boys. You could immediately see they wished that time could be reversed.
Which we didn't say that, really.
Maybe we could, never mind. Doc simply grabbed one of the guys around the shirt collar and jacked him off the bar stool. That, again, everybody needs to really
use lift
spin your willy, jacked him off. He used jacked him off is what those words are in a row. Jacked him off the bar stool. He literally held him 2 feet off the ground. I wasn't going to let Doc beat him or the others up or anything like that. I knew Doc just wanted to teach them a lesson. After making his point, he pitilessly let the frat boy down. They all scattered. Yeah, I bet. Jesus. Within minutes, we heard the police sirens, and I heard, Doc, come in here. It was the strippers motioning Doc to go in and hide in their dressing rooms.
Come in here where we're all naked. You'll be safe in here.
There's cops out there, but tits in here. Where would you rather be? Okay.
I don't need cops for that
no
motion
shit.
to be enticing.
Now just every once in a while, Doc's going to go, cops are coming, and just run in there. Hey, ladies, how you doing? Cops are here. He said it was the strippers motioning Doc. The cops came in and searched the place for Doc. And, of course, they didn't go into the dressing room where there were naked ladies.
Right.
Everybody loved Doc. That's his quote.
That's awesome.
That's terrific. You just hide in there. They're not going to go in there.
Hide amongst the titties.
Can't be in there. Yeah. 1982, Oklahoma goes 8-4 that year. And, again, not that great. They lose the Fiesta Bowl that year.
Oh, is that right?
This is a big game in Arizona State lore because they beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. This is They still talk about this fucking game in Arizona. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, Arizona State football doesn't have a whole lot to rest on.
You got the Plumber Rose Bowl, and then this, huh?
You got beating Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, and there's like one more from the 70s. It's a big deal there. So, because I think that was 82, I think is the last year that Frank Kush coached Arizona State. And then he went to the Colts, and Elway wouldn't go there, I think.
Did Plummer win the Rose Bowl?
I don't fucking remember.
I don't remember. I don't remember if they won or lost.
State. Yeah, I don't remember either. Yeah,
I just know they went, and it was a big deal.
It was a big deal, yeah, that they were, in a bowl game. That wasn't terrible. So, this year, Marcus Dupree is on the team, who could have his own episode here. He's a guy who just fucked himself out of the league completely with cocaine and stupidity. He says, Dr. Death says, Marcus Dupree was a stud of a football player. Unlike Billy Sims, however, Marcus didn't like to practice. He was extremely fast, and come game day, Marcus was on. But during practice, you would never get the most out of him. He had a poor work ethic, and I believe that lazy approach caused his knees to be unprepared for season-long contact. I don't know if that's how that works. Again, we don't know if you're an actual medical doctor, Steve. So he was, in 1982, Steve is a all Big 8 conference offensive guard. So he's very good. In wrestling, because he's been wrestling the whole time at OU also, here are his stats in wrestling, his awards here. That's his high school. 3-time Big 8 champion, 80 to 82. 4-time All-American, 79 to 82. Jesus, not bad. He has the 4th fastest pin in Oklahoma University history, as he defeated an Oklahoma State guy in 20 seconds. Wow. He won the Jimmie White Award in 81-82.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's coveted.
It's wrestling with Jimmie White's like the Valvano of like wrestling. He had cancer and came through. So did all that. He's a 4-time All-American. He kicks ass a lot. He finished 6th as a freshman, I guess, in total rankings. Right. 5th as a sophomore, 3rd as a junior, and 2nd as a senior.
Wow.
He lost in the finals of an NCAA tournament to future 2-time Olympic gold medalist Bruce Baumgartner. So that's that's okay. He got a lot of wrestling medals, which is good shit here. And he's the guy who trained with Kurt Angle as well to help him in Olympic wrestling, this guy. So a badass. Steve says, I don't think people realize what wrestling is all about. They don't know the rules. I think if somebody gets out there and explains the techniques and the point system, people could understand it better. It's like boxing and anything else. They like to see the big guys go at it. Again, guys, if you just finish a sentence and go, anything in here sound sexual? No? Okay.
Small tweak.
Just small tweaks. Just a little bit. Remember in Arrested Development when he tells David Cross, just carry a tape recorder around with you one day and just one day listen to what you've said. Just
listen to
play it back. It's one of those. It's a big deal there.
Have you ever gotten a message out of the blue? Maybe you ignore them. Or maybe you end up in conversation. Maybe they tell you about an amazing offer. I can really show you how to make some money. And maybe that gets you into a lot of trouble. But this isn't a story about people like you, the people receiving these messages. This is a story about the people behind the messages, on the other end of the line. Thousands of them, working in a microcity built for scammers. From Wondery, the makers of Dr. Death and Kill List, comes Scam Factory, a new series about survival at the expense of others. Follow Scam Factory on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Scam Factory early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
Behind the closed doors of government offices and military compounds, there are hidden stories and buried secrets from the darkest corners of history. From covert experiments pushing the boundaries of science to operations so secretive they were barely whispered about. Each week, on Redacted, Declassified Mysteries, we pull back the curtain on these hidden histories. 100% true and verifiable stories that expose the shadowy underbelly of power. Consider Operation Paperclip, where former Nazi scientists were brought to America after World War II, not as prisoners, but as assets to advance U.S. intelligence during the Cold War. These aren't just old conspiracy theories. They're thoroughly investigated accounts that reveal the uncomfortable truths still shaping our world today. The stories are real. The secrets are shocking. Follow Redacted, Declassified Mysteries on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Redacted early and ad-free right now on Wondery Plus.
They want to see big guys go at it. I don't think people understand the sport, and if they understood it better, I think they'd come out and watch. No, probably not. But amateur wrestling is hard and difficult and all that, and also not a real exciting spectator sport.
True.
It cannot move out of a circle. So right there, you're limiting the action.
Yeah, it's got borders.
It's got borders, hardcore borders. There's no running around.
Very defined. Yeah.
Very small, too. So he was interested in wrestling, as we'll talk about here. He said that he used to call himself Dr. Death anyway. Like that was always his nickname. In
really?
College and high school, everybody called him Dr. Death. And he said at one point, it shattered my nose about 100 times, and they had to keep stopping the match, a wrestling match. So coach from another school gave me an old-time goalie mask, and when I put that on, my coach yelled out, Dr. Death. So that's what it was. He said, He said, I wasn't like Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock, who got a nickname for being in wrestling. I got a nickname for being a tough guy on the mat. I didn't have to give Vince McMahon a big house because he made up the name. I already had that name. I did all my bookings, and I was my own agent, so I came out really well.
Beautiful.
So everybody knew him as that. He says, when people say Steve, I don't even hear that word anymore. It's usually Doc or Dr. Death. And all the wrestlers call him Doc. Everybody, when they're talking about him, they're like, Doc, 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 Doc. They just call him Doc. He said, and I think they usually remember the name Dr. Death. That stands out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He said, there's always some wannabes that came out there, like Brian Bosworth, who wanted to be a Dr. Death. I was already there and conquered the Sooner football field, and I think they remember me as the tough guy who came in there and conquered amateur wrestling and football, and the first guy who could become a professional wrestler when he's had one more year of football left. I don't think anybody's ever accomplished that. Because some of his pro wrestling, he wrestled a little bit while he was still in college before his senior year playing football. Absolutely. Because Bill Watts, he knows Bill Watts here from his coach, and it's a interesting story here. He says how he got into wrestling. When I was a senior in college, professional wrestling found me. In 1981, after I was defeated in the NCAA wrestling finals by Bruce Baumgartner, Bill Watts approached me about becoming a professional wrestler with his Mid-South promotion. We've talked a ton about Bill Watts.
Yeah.
Big amateur guy, football player, loves an amateur athlete. That's what he loves the most.
Memphis, right?
No, he's Mid-South. Memphis was Jerry Lawler, and that's them. But they do have, you know what? That's confusing though, because Memphis had the Mid-South Coliseum is where their big shows were, even though it's not the Mid-South. That confuses a lot of people. So Mid-South is
what I was thinking.
No, it's not. I know. But you actually fell into a hole that a lot of wrestling fans will go, Mid-South Coliseum, but that was Tennessee. Yeah, okay. Right. So the Mid-South is Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, and
that's
like that area.
All. That's real south.
it's south. You're mid. I guess you're middle of the country south.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it is.
If you consider the planet, then it's mid.
Midwestern South. So he said, dating back to their Putnam City High School and University of Oklahoma days, Coach Abel, his wrestling coach, and Bill Watts were close friends. One day, Coach Abel called Bill Watts and told him he thought I would make an excellent professional wrestler. Bill Watts asked, is he tough? Coach Abel, who coached more than 50 All-Americans and had 13 national wrestling titles, said, Bill, he's the toughest I've ever seen.
As it gets.
As it gets. He said, I decided to meet with Bill Watts, and I liked him from the start. He was friendly, straightforward, and had that look in his eye as if he knew I had something beneficial to bring to his promotion. I had a national reputation, and I sensed Bill knew I was marketable. Watts said, kid, give it a shot. At this point, academics weren't my highest priority, and I needed some money. I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. I didn't tell anyone that I was training to become a professional wrestler. The only person who knew about it was Coach Abel, not my mom, dad, brothers, even Coach Switzer. Didn't even tell Barry Switzer. Wow. I was my own man, and I didn't feel that anyone needed to know my business. Years later, I would have to tell my friend Mike Geary because he would take me to Bill's place. Or later, I would tell, not years later, sorry. Mm-hmm. He said, one time before football practice, a reporter asked me if wrestling was fake. With a look of incomprehension, I pulled up my shirt, revealing bruises to my ribs, and said, let me show you something. Count them. The reporter counted 42 bruises on the side of my ribs. I continued, you call this fake? So, he is, I guess he said, although we lost Arizona State in the Fiesta Bowl, I knew I had a good enough senior year to be drafted in football. I didn't care about academics and yearned to get back into the ring. As I waited for the spring football draft, I went back to work for Bill Watts. He said, standing 6'2" and weighing a natural 290 pounds at 23, holy fuck, I started my first major professional wrestling angle with Bob Roop. And I see here, too, they had him fighting Terry Taylor a lot, who was later on the Red Rooster, fucking worst gimmick ever, before he was the Red Rooster. Terry Taylor, I think, was helping him learn how to work a little bit here. So he is selected by the New Jersey Generals in the 1983 USFL Territorial Draft. So there you go. He signs with the New Jersey Generals, and they try to convert him to a defensive tackle rather than an offensive guard.
Okay.
During camp, though, he got a bruised knee and was on injured reserve for the first 6 games of the season. He gets activated for Week 10, and he's the starting nose tackle for a loss to the Birmingham Stallions. That was live on ESPN. Oh. So I guarantee you that's on YouTube. So if you want to see him play defensive line,
it's there.
It's probably, I guarantee, all of those games are USFL Forever is the name of the channel, I believe. Okay. They have tons of games on there. Yeah, they're cool. So he said Williams started here at nose tackle the following week when they lost to the Michigan Panthers. That first year, the Generals were terrible. He ends up getting cut, though.
Okay.
He said that they paid him for the remainder of his contract, and they placed him on the injured reserve roster. He said they also gave me extra money to pay for another year of school at the University of Oklahoma. I guess my dad sure enough took care of it, huh? Oh, because his dad, that's right, because his dad helped him with that. He said, I sold my house, packed everything up, and headed back to Lakewood. Since I had a few months before the fall semester started, I stayed a few weeks with my brother, Jerry, in San Diego. While in San Diego, I called Dan Reeves. Dan Reeves was the coach of the Denver Gold of the USFL.
Right.
I asked him if there was a place for me on his roster, but he said the unit was set for the year. We chatted about other things, and he told me to check back with him before the start of training camp the next season. He said he went to San Diego, chilled out, and had some money in the bank from his contract, and just didn't know what to do with himself. So
smile every fucking day.
Yeah, hanging out on the beach. He said, though, he called Bill Watts and said, Bill, can I come to work for you full time? Yeah. And Bill said, I'll tell you what, kid, you have to promise that you'll never go back to professional football again. And he said, okay, fine. So there he goes. He's going to go be a wrestler now.
Uh-huh.
He said, I played for Barry Switzer and Stan Abel. You couldn't have asked for anything better than that. Those two guys were like fathers to me. They came to see me in the hospital later on. We'll talk about that. He said, so he's talked to him all the time. Bill Watts said, Doc fit right in with Mid-South Wrestling. I had the best workers and the toughest guys in the business working for me. Doc was indeed both tough and rugged. He was also extremely talented with legitimate athletic credentials. I never considered Doc to have great technique, and at first he wasn't a great worker, but what he had was more significant, a force of will and a heart. He would go out, all out, and just destroy people. He got over it because of his personality and because he was a force. So... And Mid-South is one of these territories that is, Bill Watts, beats the shit out of people if they don't do things right. You know what I mean? He's famous for that. Yeah, he's a famous story of telling Buddy Landell to get down on the ground and show you how to sell a kick. He goes, you're not selling kicks when people kick. Get down on the ground. And then he just all out kicks the shit out of him. Yeah, that's how you sell a kick. What you just did there, pretend that. Yeah. Asshole. So that's how he would do things. So he did not treat Dr. Death like that, though. He treated he's like his son. He treats him just like a son.
Also a little afraid, probably.
Also not a guy you're going to physically toss around and intimidate by far. But that's the style of wrestling he wanted to. Rough, rugged. If you hit a guy, you better hear it. I don't want to see any phantom bullshit. You got to hear it, see it. There better be a mark on him.
Yeah.
He's the guy who had the famous thing where if you go out and get in a bar fight, I don't care if you get arrested. I don't care if you kill 5 people. If you lose the fight, you're fired. Because then everyone around town knows you're a pussy, and who's going to want to watch? Who's going to buy a ticket to watch a pussy fight? Who cares?
Good point. Yeah.
So that's how you do it. So he starts out with all this. Here's a quote from Ricky Morton, who is a Rock and Roll Express member here, tag team, famous guy there. He said, during a tag match between Ricky and me, the Rock and Roll Express, against Doc and Hercules Hernandez. Jesus, those are two huge, insanely tough guys. Hercules Hernandez, he was in WWF from 86 to 92 or whatever, but big fucking jacked, roided up, big, scary, tough son of a bitch. He said Hercules Hernandez in Houma, Louisiana, which we've talked about not only on this show but on Small Town Murder. I told Doc before our match to watch the fans in this town because they are wild, crazy Cajuns. In only a Doc way he could respond, he said, screw them. Well, halfway through our match, I'm selling big time. Doc quickly comes over to me and yells at me to get up and make a comeback. The fans back then, and Jim Cornette's talked about this, in Houma, they said these people were fucking backwoods swamp people, basically, the people that came to the matches. He said they didn't get that this wasn't real. So if you were beating up one of the good guys, they would try to stab you because they were mad at you for beating up. Don't beat him up. We like him. And it was fucking crazy. They said they always had to fight their way out of the ring and shit, the heels there.
Is that the one where the kids rode a donkey to the show?
No, that is that's Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Right.
That's in like Kentucky, I believe. The donkey riding. He said. Yeah. So he tells him, he said, I look across the ring and see about 30 rabid Cajuns in the ring. The people got in the ring. Doc is fighting them one by one and also tending to our match in the ring. It was total pandemonium. He's fighting. God. He's like kicking the guy he's supposed to kick in the ring and then beating up a couple of fans and then going over, hitting the other Rock and Roll Express member. The match was called a disqualification, and the ref and I headed back to the dressing room. Doc, who is the strongest and toughest wrestler I've ever met, was fighting the fans as he headed back to the dressing room.
Continued to fight.
Had to fight. They would stop you from going. Yeah. Doc made it to the dressing room, but lo and behold, the door was locked. Doc couldn't get in.
Oh, no.
With what seemed like minimal effort, Doc kicked the heavy steel door down, ripping it right off the hinges. It was unreal. Doc grabbed his stuff and with the help of the police and security left the arena unscratched. There must have been 50 beaten coon-ass Cajuns lying on the ground. And that's not a racial slur. These are all white people. That's in Louisiana. There's like hick, hillbilly, whatever, and then there's coon-ass, which means you're from the swamp and you're like,
oh boy,
you eat raccoons all the time, and that doesn't mean black at all. It's a totally different thing there. So
he removed a door.
He just kicked a giant steel door off a dressing room that's meant to keep out a crowd of people.
Right.
Just kick it off, no problem. Get my shit and get out of here. Well, that was fun. He got, there's a match, he says, there was one match with Brad Armstrong. He says, June 5th, 1985, Brad Armstrong and I met in Shreveport, Louisiana. Brad's a second-generation wrestler and a great technical worker. Midway through our 20-minute scheduled match, I whipped him into the ropes for a clothesline. I hit him so hard that his elbow swung back and nailed me straight in the eye. The impact forced me through the ropes, and I landed hard on the concrete floor. My eye was split open, and my eyeball was totally exposed.
Oh, shit.
He's got a real eyelid problem.
I wonder if it's the same eyelid.
That's what I mean. His dad didn't.
Dad's handiwork. Yeah, left it a little.
It's a little butterfly weakness there. He said, as Brad and the referee waited for my next move, I simply wiped the blood away. I shook my head up and down to acknowledge that I could continue. With blood gushing all over me, I climbed back into the ring and pinned Brad a few minutes later. When we got to the back, Bill said that I had another match that evening. So you're going to fight again. Ted DiBiase and I had to defend our belts. And I said, oh gosh, okay, Bill. The personnel in the back put some Vaseline around my eye and did their best to stop the bleeding. About 1 hour later, I went back out there, and Ted and I defeated the Fantastics to maintain our titles. Later that night, I went to the local hospital, and they sewed up my eye. The gash was so bad, it took 108 stitches.
Holy
balls, dude. That's a 108? 108. They were just like, we'll put some Vaseline on it.
That's a long. Is that a long? Do you know what I mean?
Is it long or just thick, or they have
several layers? What is
that?
Wow.
He said my eye. Well, here he explains it. My eye was split wide open in 4 different places, with 2 gaping cuts above the eyelid and 1 S-shaped slit under the eye and a jagged cut in the corner of the eye.
What the hell is his elbow made out of?
Fuck, man. No shit. Does he have the Lex Luger fucking bionic forearm?
Was he wearing spiked elbow pads?
Oh, it was Hawk and Animal, man. No, it was Brad Armstrong. He doesn't have any gimmick, except I'm Brad Armstrong.
That's a good one.
I'm a wrestler.
I have the same name as your neighbor.
I'm excited. Wow, Brad. Can you, when we're done watching you wrestle, can you come over and sell me some insurance next? Fucking boring. Good worker and all, but boring as shit.
Give me the best tips on hedges.
Please. He said, I've come within a 1/4 inch of losing my right eye completely. Well, that's not good. He talks about steroids now and how he got into steroids. And he talks about Hercules Hernandez, whose real name is Ray Fernandez. And why wouldn't you just call yourself Hercules Fernandez? Because it's not alliterative. Hercules Hernandez.
That's probably
double
what it
H.
is. Yeah.
Whatever. He said Ray was a very muscular guy. And he was, he had like 0.5% body fat. Like it was, you look at like 86 Hercules, it's like, holy shit, this guy is jacked. He said he worked a great strongman gimmick. Since I stayed with him on the road, I saw Ray take his shots. I didn't know much about steroids at that time. I was a natural 280 plus. Ray told me that those steroids could cut me up real good. Yeah, A lot of guys in the business were using them, and the better you look, the better chance you'd have to make more money.
Sure.
That's a fact. One day think about what you're competing with. Like, you're competing with the movies in the mid-'80s of Schwarzenegger and Stallone and all these guys who were on shitloads of steroids walking around all jacked up. That's what
balloons.
Yeah. He said, one day I told Ray, all right, let's go ahead and try it.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and give it a whirl. What do you say, buddy?
I'll try them. I'll
try them.
Like it's a Costco sample. Sorry.
Like I have never wanted an Oreo, but you know what? I keep watching you eat them. Chocolate cream, it sounds like it might be. Give me one of those.
I've heard they're good. I'll try.
I heard they're good. He said, I began to take Winstrol. I got on a cycle, and after a while, the steroid began to chisel my body. Combined with my intense workouts, my body transformed. I then decided to also take Deca-Durabolin, which is the other one. Deca and Winstrol is what they all take, an anabolic steroid. Deca produces muscle growth and increases red blood cells, bone density, and appetite. After all the damage done to my joints, this steroid made me move a little better, which helped me out tremendously.
Sure.
All the football and the wrestling, he's got to have knees are already got to be trashed by now.
But his heart is going to be irreversibly
just from the butter
damaged. Yeah.
Between that and the butter.
Butter smoking. Jesus.
Good God, you smoke that much butter, it'll take its toll. He said, we would get our steroids on the black market. Lots of wrestlers were taking steroids, so it wasn't like you couldn't find them. To look good and advance in the business, steroids were a huge asset. Yep. Here's Ricky Morton. Quote, I recall one time that Doc and Hercules got in a fight. Though it was mainly cussing and yelling as well as throwing things, I was stunned to see Doc tear off the front glass door of the club.
What?
You ever been to a nightclub that has a big front door? He just ripped it off.
He's a wrecking ball. How does he destroy houses?
Oh, you can't. If you make him mad in your house, it could just be a pile of rubble when you leave. You're just ripping parts off of it. He said,
great demo, man.
Wow, I would say so. He was stunned to see Doc tear off the front glass door of the club. This door must have weighed 300 pounds, and Doc was carrying it around and swinging it like a baseball bat. Jesus
Swinging
Christ. Swinging a fucking giant. Oh, my God. After everything calmed down, we are all leaving to head to the hotel. Oh, how does that calm down ever? The club has no door anymore. How does that get calm?
Yeah.
What? He just put the door down in order to drink? Like what?
Once the shock subsided, I guess is the words, right?
Oh, my. Yeah, I guess so. He said, after all calmed down, we were leaving to head back to the hotel. I looked over and asked Doc if he was going to bring the door back inside. Doc still had this 300-pound door in his hand, just taking it home with him.
Yeah.
Here's some stories of some bar fights from this area.
Oh boy.
Because the arrests he has don't have a shitload of details. Like he doesn't have like a standoff with the cops where he was beating his wife and he was doing that. Doesn't happen. So there's a lot of like fights though that are like, wow, he could be in prison for that. Like 25 things where you go, he definitely would have been arrested. We've already said 10 of them, I think.
Yeah, he beat a man bloody in the street in Tucson.
Yeah, he beats a guy bloody. He's ripping doors off. Who knows? So here's Buddy Landell, Nature Boy Buddy Landell, who had a lot of balls calling himself that.
Son of a bitch.
He wasn't as good as Flair or Buddy Rogers, so neither one of them. He said, Steve was this big, tough guy. I was the young and brash instigator. We just took a liking to each other. We got along real well, but when it came to fighting, I would always start the fight and run, and Steve would have to finish it.
Yeah.
It's a good quality to have. He said, I got in many bar fights throughout my Mid-South wrestling tenure. Many occurred at a bar called Cowboys. It's since changed its name to the Rockin' Rodeo. Since all the talent had to be in Shreveport on Wednesday morning for TV, the boys tried to get back from Jackson, Lake Charles, Lafayette, or wherever they were Tuesday evenings to go to Cowboys. It was located next to the Sheraton Hotel where we all stayed. Everybody at the bar knew us and treated us well. Okay. One evening I was there. This is Steve talking. One evening I was there with Buddy Landell, Hercules, and my ex-wife, Tammy. We'll hear from her, too. I had just started dating her and was madly in love. I was out on the dance floor, dancing and kissing all over her. Out of nowhere, 5 police officers come up to me. They tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, saw them, and quipped, "What in the world did I do now?"
Which crime are you here for?
Right, which one? Which door are you here to charge me for? He said a cop pointed to the other side of the room and said, "You guys got to get out of here." I had been drinking Greyhounds, vodka and grapefruit juice.
Yeah, that's gross.
Ugh. Jesus Christ.
That's so
okay.
bad.
You drink vodka and orange juice to cover the flavor of the vodka. Now, you somehow found the one fruit juice that exists on this planet that tastes worse than vodka and said, let's mix those together. Yeah. Wow.
At that point, I guess you're drinking it for heart health, right?
I think that's true. It's the antioxidants is really what you're after there, I believe.
Combat the damage that the vodka's doing.
You got it. Jesus Christ. He said, so I was feeling pretty good. I asked, what do I have to do to get out of here? The only thing, or why do I have to get out of here? The only thing I'd been doing is dancing and having fun with my girlfriend. One of the cops knew me and said, well, some of your buddies over there are causing trouble. They're talking trash, and it looks like they're going to start a fight. Okay. I should have known Buddy Landell was running his mouth again.
Oh, no.
Buddy was another guy I got along with. Buddy was a great worker and at one time was the Mid-South television champion. Sporting dyed blonde hair, nature boy Buddy Landell, like me, loved to drink and party, and we had a grand time on the road. The problem with Buddy was that he often couldn't keep his mouth shut. He was the mouth of the South and was always looking to pick a fight. I loved the guy, but when the fight started, he was nowhere to be found. I was often left to do the heavy hitting as well as spending the nights in jail. Anyway, I looked to the back to see Buddy and Hercules surrounded by every male patron in the bar. Perfect.
Yeah.
There was about to be a huge gang fight, literally 100 versus 2. I knew the patrons wouldn't stand a chance, 100 versus 3, but I was in love and was having a great time with my girlfriend. Fuck, man. The last thing on my mind was fighting. So when the police behind me rushed over, with the police behind me, I rushed over and told Buddy and Hercules we need to get out of here. As we left the bar, the cops escorted Buddy and Hercules, my soon-to-be wife Tammy, and me out of the bar. As I passed through the front door, some guy popped me in the face from behind. Man, like a bull, I went chasing after this coward. As I got closer, all of a sudden a cop stepped in front of the now fallen punk, and it was go time. No, that's not go time. That's not a go. That's
stop time.
That's stop time. With
the
rage,
guy punched him in the face from behind, so he wrapped around him.
It came in one of those from the side, and I guess he said the now fallen guy. So apparently the cop knocked him down as he was running away,
or he tripped, like in a fucking horror movie with a guy that size chasing you.
No shit. Yeah, really, I got a heart attack. Oh God. He says, with rage running through my veins, I pointed my finger at this police officer and said, "Kid, you must be a rookie cop." I was going to beat the living tar out of this guy and anyone else who got in my way. But as I turned to Tammy, who was screaming for me to stop, this rookie cop jumped on my back and tried to put the sleeper hold on me. He also wedged his knee into my lower back. Out of instinct, the only thing I could do was drop down in a three-point stance and head for something that would get this cop off my back.
He's going to bull rush a wall and smash a cop's head into it.
And do a ridiculous, slapstick comedy fucking move. Who wouldn't want to? I want the surveillance footage. I know it was the 80s and it wouldn't be good, but I want HD surveillance footage of this whole scene happening. I really do. This sounds great.
4K.
Oh, man, I need this. He says, so he did that. The first thing I saw was the police paddy wagon.
Uh-huh.
With the target locked in, I headed right to it. I was running as fast as I could like a snorting bull with the cops screaming for me to stop. I put on the brakes right before hitting the paddy wagon. The cop flew off and he hit the paddy wagon, which knocked him unconscious. Simultaneously, I felt these sharp pains to my lower back and legs. I turned around and saw about 20 cops beating me down. I was soon handcuffed and my ankles were chained. What's that feeling? Oh, those are nightsticks in my ribs. I didn't even... How many nightsticks to the ribs would it take you to notice?
Now, if you guys hit me and I find out about it...
I am going to be mad. Holy fuck.
Well, they're just pounding him.
I was thrown into the police car and taken downtown. Tammy later told me that when they arrested me, she overheard the police dispatch. The police called the jail and told them to move everybody out of the big jail cell. They just arrested the toughest SOB around and they were bringing him in. The dispatcher radioed back, "Who is it?" And they said, "Dr. Death is coming to jail." And the dispatcher simply replied in a concerned tone, "Oh my." I spent the night in jail, and the next morning I had my hearing. 20 cops must have been in attendance. It seemed that everyone gave a statement. The judge told me to stand. He asked me, "What were you thinking?"
Yeah.
I said, "Nothing. I was there with my girlfriend minding my own business, and I tried to be a good guy and get my friends out of there before a fight broke out. Next thing you know, I'm getting hit in the face from behind. I was simply defending myself. Very simple here. After a few back-and-forth comments, the judge took a short break. When he came back, the judge asked me to stand. He then told me to approach the bar. In hysteria, I think the bench is what you're going for, Steve.
Not the bar.
Everything's the bar. He was back there. He wasn't shaking you up a fucking greyhound, was he?
The lawyers approached the bar.
They approached the bar. Or joined the bar. In a stereotypical manner of Louisiana justice, he said, Mr. Williams, to terminate the charge of battery on an officer, the fine is $5,000. So you want to pay, you can pay. Yeah. I can give you a break, but I have to work with these officers for the rest of my life. And Steve says, I just started in the business, and $5,000 is a lot of money to me back then, but I had no choice, so I accepted the judge's offer. Yeah, no shit.
That's
After another incident that occurred at Cowboys could have really damaged my reputation in life.
Uh-oh.
Prior to dating Tammy, I met a very attractive young lady on the dance floor.
Oh, no.
We drank and danced all night. When the bar shut down, we both headed back to my place. A few hours later, I dropped her off back at the bar parking lot. In other words, when we're done.
Yeah.
The next morning, I got a knock on my door. The cops asked me a few questions. The police then told me the young lady who spent the early morning hours with me said I had raped her.
Oh, boy.
I was stunned. I pleaded my side, but the police arrested me and took me downtown. There is no record. I cannot. It wasn't in the newspaper or any of that he got arrested for, even taken in. Yeah. If an NBA player tomorrow gets arrested for rape, I don't care if it's just for question, whatever. They're fucking putting that out there.
It's all over the place.
He said, I couldn't believe this allegation. I once again appeared before the court. I pleaded not guilty and was released on bond. A court date was set. It was unreal, and evil things started to run through my mind. Oh, boy.
What kind of evil things?
I don't like that at all. Fortunately, the young lady eventually dropped all charges. I later found out she made this charge of rape up because she felt I had disrespected her. She wanted to get all cozy and serious. In one short evening, she had somehow developed some feelings toward me. I simply used her, then dropped her back off at her vehicle without even getting her phone number or saying goodnight. I would be a whole lot more careful in the future.
I was just trying to get some pussy.
Wow. All right, then. There's no other info on that, so we only have his side of that, so who knows?
Who knows? Maybe he is that charming that you just want to fucking settle down with him.
I don't know.
After one night.
He's like a big teddy bear, you know?
He's
cuddly.
so loving.
That beard. He's got a beard
down on me, for God's sake.
It was great, too. I mean, he really worked it out. It was hard. I mean, he smelled like a greyhound, but other than that. So he's in UWF the whole time. Well, it's Mid-South, which turns into UWF, is Bill Watts, what Bill Watts runs. He turns it into UWF. After Bill Watts turns it into UWF, he's really running with Steve as kind of his main guy. Okay. This is like 86. He wins the UWF Heavyweight Championship from Big Bubba Rogers, who is future Big Boss Man. Okay. And then Jim Crockett Promotions bought UWF in 87. Jim Crockett Promotions bought by Ted Turner. And turned into WCW in 88. So that's how that went, okay? He's one of the few guys from the Bill Watts crew that they kind of pushed as a big guy was Steve Williams because he looks like he looks. So there's another problem he has with a young lady here we'll talk about. Quote, a few years back, a groupie came up to our hotel room in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Buzz Sawyer, John Norton, and I engaged in a youthful indiscretion, which I am embarrassed by to this day.
Hold on.
Yeah.
How many guys?
1, 2, 3. 3 large men. And Buzz Sawyer's a scumbag, too. Like, he's a piece of shit scumbag.
She's probably not as big as them. Therefore, there's not a lot of room. We're touching thighs in this.
Wow. There's touching all sorts of shit. Pecs and thighs and...
Nut bags.
Wow, this is a lot.
Oh, boy.
Seeing that I was going to be rolling in the dough with WWF, the woman claimed that I was the father of her child.
Oh.
In front of a packed courthouse with media galore, I had to unnecessarily subject my family to this untruth. I had to take 2 DNA tests in front of everyone. They swabbed my mouth with these large Q-tips. The results unequivocally proved that I wasn't the father, yet the humiliation to me and the shame to my family was indecent and offensive. Yeah. In the end, the case cost me slightly more than $100,000.
What?
Between lawyer fees, court costs, testing, travel, and other related expenses, all the money I had saved over the last few years was gone. Though I won the case and I was vindicated, the lawyers were the only ones to benefit from the sham.
That's fucked, man.
That's fucked. Yeah, I mean, you have to defend yourself, and the only way to do that's with lawyers and money.
Shouldn't you just spit in a cup and call it good? Wouldn't that do it?
I would imagine so. Well, I would think maybe it would be like, if it's yours, then fine. But if the baby's not yours after all that, then that should be on. That's what I mean. Yeah, you brought me into this. I didn't say I was your fucking.
Right.
I didn't say I was the baby's
I wasn't
father.
trying to be the kid's dad. I wasn't claiming anything.
We were running a train on you in a hotel room. It was disgusting.
And I didn't even want to tell my wife about this.
I touched Buzz Sawyer's nutsack. You know what that's like?
I've never even jerked off to this memory since then. I never want to remember this ever again.
Oh, my God. So let's hear from Mrs. Dr. Death.
Oh, boy. Yeah, what's she have to say?
This is Tammy here.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I have often been asked what it's like to be married to Dr. Death, Steve Williams.
Mm-hmm.
We had our good times and bad times. He took me places that I had never been to and would probably never have seen without him. We were also going to Japan and Hawaii on a regular basis. He also bought me very nice things. Yeah. Steve's lifestyle also affected our relationship in a bad way. I used to tell people it was like living with a rock and roll star. He wasn't around a lot, and the few times I accused him of fooling around with other women. At times, our relationship was very emotional and hurtful. Though he may not have always been the best husband, he is a wonderful dad. He even adopted my daughter, Stormy. Stephen is categorically an excellent father to both Wyndham and Stormy. He's also like a father to my other child, Levi. So, through all this, he ends up being on a TV show here for an episode. This is a terrible show called Learning the Ropes. It was on in the late 80s for like a season and a half, starring Lyle Alzado. Do you remember this show? He's a wrestler, Lyle Alzado. I remember it. He said he met Lyle Alzado briefly when he was in high school, Steve said.
Same Lyle Alzado that played for the Raiders?
For the Raiders. Lyle Alzado died, all that Lyle Alzado. Yeah, he was an actor in the 80s for a while, and he got this TV show. He said, at my senior homecoming game, Lyle gave away the homecoming queen. He's like, I'm done with her. Here you go. I'm just kidding. It was great to finally see Lyle close up and also to size myself up against him. Later in life, I got to know him a little more. When I was wrestling for Jim Crockett from 88 to 89, Lyle was making a show, Learning the Ropes. The sitcom was produced in Canada and featured Lyle Alzado as a teacher named Robert Randall, who could not provide for his family with his job as a teacher and vice principal of a school, so he turned to wrestling part-time to pay the bills.
Okay.
Lyle needed some real wrestlers to work on his show, as well as a stuntman who looked like him and could absorb the punishment of being in the ring. Several WCW stars appeared in the show, Ric Flair, Ronnie Garvin, the Road Warriors, but Lyle chose me as his stuntman, and I wrestled in the show as the Masked Maniac.
Oh.
He said, let me tell you something. Being a stuntman for the sitcom was one very painful experience. Your only job is to take a beating.
You're just getting beat up all day.
He said, during one stunt, I blew out my knee landing on the canvas of a stiff ring after Ric Flair rolled out of the way. On another occasion, I got my head busted open when Tully Blanchard smashed a steel chair over it. I went to the hospital, got 39 stitches in my head, and quickly returned to the set to finish the session. It was the most painful $2,000 I would ever earn in my lifetime.
$2,000 for that.
$2,000 here. All right, here's a story from one of his pals here. Quote, in another traffic-related story, this one clown was speeding in and out of traffic and wouldn't let Doc pass. He kept screaming and cussing at Doc. That seems wise. If you saw this man's head in a car window, would you be screaming and cussing at him? No. Be like, oh, that guy, come on through. Be waving him by. Finally, Doc was able to pass the man. Doc looked over and said, I'm going to teach this guy a lesson. Doc put on his brakes, and we both get out of the car. When this guy saw the size of Doc, he rolled up his window and looked, no pun intended, scared to death.
Yeah.
He didn't say a peep the entire time Doc was yelling up a storm. Right before we left, Doc slammed his arms down on the roof and left the shape of a bird bath on the car. Wow. The guy still didn't say a word. He's happy to get away not murdered here. So, January 4th, 1988. Okay, here he is. He's going to be arraigned here in District Court, U.S. District Court in Detroit, on a charge of attempting to export cocaine.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Not good. He was detained by U.S. Customs agents on January 4th when they discovered various drugs in his clothing and luggage as he attempted to board a flight to Tokyo, according to the affidavit. The affidavit said customs inspectors found 3 grams of cocaine in his pants pocket, 22 grams of marijuana in his sock, and 2 grams of psilocybin mushrooms and assorted barbiturates in a black purse. In his luggage, then, they found more barbiturates and marijuana, 241 steroid tablets, and 28 milliliters of liquid steroid.
Okay. And they got him on the cocaine?
And they got, well, that's the most, exporting a drug like cocaine's the highest charge.
Okay.
For that, yeah. I mean, this is fucking 88. Cocaine was, public enemy 1 at that point. So they said that they ordered him to surrender his passport and restricted his travel to the continental United States and all this type of shit here. He had, they were talking about a diversion program that would allow him to avoid criminal prosecution, but the court pretrial service division recommended against it.
Oh.
And federal officials were then unable to find Williams, prompting an issuance of a warrant for his arrest, and then he was arrested by federal agents in Seattle.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, he faces some jail time and a $250,000 fine for this.
Wow.
And a year and a half in prison. Here's how he explains it.
Tell me.
Okay.
It was a misunderstanding.
Well, no. He just how he got into it. Hawk of the Road Warriors. Let's start with that.
Okay.
Now, Hawk is the one with not the mohawk. He's the reverse mohawk. He's that one of the Road Warriors.
Sense.
It's he put a receding hairline he shaved into his head. Shaved a horseshoe.
Yeah, but why?
One has one and one has the other.
The other guy should be Hawk, is my point.
I guess, but he's Hawk, the other guy's Animal. So he said, anyway, Hawk and I lived together on the road. He had a heart of gold and was very compassionate and an understanding person. Hawk was a top star and got paid very well for his talent. On the other hand, the company wasn't paying me well at all. Hawk knew about this inequity, so out of the kindness of his heart, he gave me money if I was ever short or in a bind. He treated me like a younger brother. With my divorce, the birth of my premature baby and life on the road, and my miserable contract, life became very difficult and stressful. Hawk was also going through a divorce. Though we looked larger than life on television and in the arena, we were emotionally and physically hurting. Life became very tough for both of us. At this time, to escape our pain and troubles, Hawk introduced me to cocaine. Yay, that'll do it. I became addicted. I was doing steroids, popping painkillers, drinking and smoking marijuana. I was a drug addict. Wow. That sounds like it. For some reason, I thought these cravings would solve my problems and keep me alive, and I wasn't alone. There was many guys in the business who had to deal with the same issues. The company was running us hard. We were working 9 matches a week, 1 on Saturday, 2 on Sundays. Hawk and I were like machines and felt invincible. Cocaine kept us going. Well, yeah.
Do it, yeah.
I was also chasing Benjamin Franklin. My life was all about getting as much money as possible. I sent some money home to my family, someone in the bank. The rest went to my vices. I was living in the devil's den. My body was in pain from getting pounded every night. Again, Doc, just for a second, just think of what you just said and then go,
you know what? Then?
Make that like that. I was shooting in Japan and dealing with head games and stress in the States. I was also trying to keep my family together. I needed an outlet. I'm embarrassed today about my past addiction, but would never erase the wonderful memories and times that Hawk and I shared. Like me, Hawk became a born-again Christian and changed his life. Unfortunately, Hawk passed away in October of 2003 at 46. It was during this period in NWA wrestling that I got busted 2 out of the 3 times of my career for drugs. 2 out of his 3 career busts came during this time. The first time it happened at the Detroit airport, that's this time, they found a plethora of cocaine, pills, pot, and steroids in my luggage. Though they were simply for my own personal use, the authorities thought I was planning to sell the drugs in Japan. They confiscated everything, and I spent a night in jail. With the help of a lawyer friend recommended by the Road Warriors, I was let go. But upon my return from Japan, federal agents were waiting for me in California. They showed up in the locker room and mistakenly grabbed Rip Morgan. That poor bastard. Shit. They found me in Seattle, Washington. I had to pay a huge fine, received 1 year probation, and was sentenced to community service. So it's really hard to find the resolution of this. You hear he got busted, but to find the resolution is really difficult. So I'm glad he put that in there. So, he talks about now he's in WCW now, and this is a bad time of WCW. This is like all sorts of kind of shit angles, and Jim Herd's going to take over. 89, 90, 91. Right. Yeah. This is when they didn't want Ric Flair anymore and sent him to WWF in 92 and late 91, and it was that sort of deal. He's in an angle with the Varsity Club, is the Varsity Club, him and Mike Rotunda, who's IRS
two
later.
Captains of the football team or some shit.
It's kind of like that sort of thing. Yeah, it's really a dumb, I don't know. There's good wrestlers in it, but a really stupid fucking name. So I guess it was guys who had done college wrestling or college sports, because Rotunda wrestled at Syracuse and he wrestled at OU. And so here's a story from Jim Ross about a fight here. He talks about this on his podcast, Grilling JR. He talks about Road Warrior Hawk and Dr. Death getting in a fight. So they love each other, and he loves them so much, but apparently they also got into each other's faces a lot. And he said they, according to Cornette, they got in each other's faces and cursed at each other and nearly came to blows. He said that, this is what he says, quote, "Of course," this is Jim Ross, "yeah, of course, two high-strung guys, two alpha males that didn't want to compromise. I was actually involved in a situation with those two guys in Florida at a TV. I remember watching the ongoings with Nate, because Nate, of course, was being a Minnesota guy," that's Ric Flair, "and Hawk, being a Minnesotan, said, 'Oh, man, your boy's going to get it tonight.' I go, 'Right, okay, Nate.' So the issue was that I got in between the two guys and started scolding them. I knew they weren't going to beat me up, because that wouldn't have been a big win on your win-loss record. So cooler heads prevailed. I said, 'You guys are going to hurt each other. Then you're going to be off work. And then when you're off work, you're not going to make a goddamn dime. Is that what you want? Are you both that stupid?' So I said, come on, get your shit together and move on, and just move on out of this, and let's see what kind of and that's the kind of what we did on that deal. They didn't fight, but they sure as hell wanted to." And Jim Ross says, "I'm like Cornette in that respect, that my money would have been on Doc. They say, why would you say that? Hawk was a great street fighter, and he had a hell of a punch. Those punches are rendered ineffective when you, the puncher, is on his back, and that's what amateur wrestlers do. Doc would have broken him down, taken him off his feet, which would have negated the punching power to a large degree, and that's how that fight would have ended. And then he would have mounted him. Everybody, please, please." It's and bad enough.
Submit to his will.
It's bad enough you're sweating in your underwear. Must you do this as well?
In the 1980s, a rosé swept the country.
Hey, Mike, I really like this White Zinfandel.
Well, good. Now put it down. We're going to try another one.
White Zin became America's top-selling wine. But most don't know that this sweet drink has a sour history. What began in 1986 with counterfeit bottles.
A big fraud, a multi-million-dollar fraud.
Sent investigators chasing one of the most powerful families in the business, the Licciardis. But the closer the feds got to them, the more dangerous things became. It's a story of deceit.
At the time, I was paranoid.
Threats.
You touch my kids, I will kill you.
And murder.
With a .22 caliber bullet to the head.
What started with a scheme to mislabel wine spilled into a blood-soaked battle for succession. Welcome to Bloodvines. You can binge listen to Bloodvines exclusively and ad-free on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
A few miles from the glass spires of Midtown Atlanta lies the South River Forest. In 2021 and 2022, the woods became a home to activists from all over the country who gathered to stop the nearby construction of a massive new police training facility, nicknamed Cop City.
At approximately 9 o'clock this morning, as law enforcement was moving through various sectors of the property, an individual, without warning, shot a Georgia State Patrol trooper.
This is We Came to the Forest, a story about resistance.
The abolitionist mission isn't done until every prison is empty and shut down.
Love and fellowship.
It was probably the happiest I've ever been in my life.
And the lengths we'll go to protect the things we hold closest to our hearts. Follow We Came to the Forest on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus.
And then he would have beat the shit out of Hawk, and that's how that would have happened. So that's what he thought. 1990 is his born-again Christian time.
Oh, boy.
This is his first, going before his first big run in Japan. Steve's a huge star in Japan.
Really?
'Cause he is like, oh, God, he's what they think of like the big, giant American, and he embodies it. So, I mean, they love that big, thick, crazy fucking...
He does look like he eats a lot of hot dogs and hamburgers.
Yeah. Him, Scott Norton, any of those real big, thick-chested guys. They love those guys over there. So he said he generally, prior to this, he lacked interest in organized religion, but now he's a born-again Christian. So he's into it. He said he also took interest in East Asian religions, having attended a lot of Japanese temples while on tour in Japan. In 1990, though, he's known for praying backstage before each match.
Oh.
So that's what he's doing here. He talks about Japan a little bit. He said, I wrestled Antonio Inoki. He was a senator over there. Inoki is like so famous. I mean, Christ, he was in Bad News Bears movies in the 70s and had that big Ali exhibition with Muhammad Ali and everything. In fact, he was the one who got the Japanese prisoners out of Iraq. I wrestled him in Dallas-Fort Worth in front of probably 40,000 people, and I got a deal out of that. It wasn't a contract, it was a handshake. That's probably why I stayed in Japan, because every contract I had in the United States has been broken, and over there, I had a handshake, and my money was sitting in the bank every time I got there. Yeah, so he said that he was Japan was a different deal for him. Like Japan over there, they want to see... You could be rough over there. You could really punch the shit out of somebody, and the crowd loves that sort of shit. So he ends up forming a tag team with Terry Gordy, who's one of the Freebirds, and also known as one of the toughest son of a bitches ever. So these two walking around would be terrifying. 1990, he goes to work for the other UWF, not Bill Watts' UWF, Herb Abrams' UWF, which we did a bonus episode on it. And he said that this wasn't Bill Watts' UWF. Rather, in 1990, the UWF founded by Herb Abrams. Herb was a dichotomy. Without a doubt, he was a heck of a nice guy. Herb was extremely funny and unequivocally treated me like a superstar. Herb flew me first class to all the events and had a limousine waiting for me at the airport. He's making no money. Remember we went over that? He put me up in the best hotels, but Herb was also a bullet train heading for a collision. He lived life to the fullest. Unfortunately, he lived on the wrong side of the track. Herb loved to party, and he could party with the best. He loved his alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, and anything else you could think of. He also surrounded himself with beautiful women. I recall this one time in Las Vegas when Herb called me to his penthouse suite in one of those luxury hotels on the Strip. Herb answered the door half blitzed. In the room were 5 naked prostitutes with cocaine all over the place.
Oh, my God.
So that's how he died, Herb, we know.
Yeah.
The UWF, however, was a legitimate company. Herb thought it could compete against WWF and WCW. I'm not sure where he got his money. Some say his parents, but he never shortchanged me. From what I understand and what we did when we went over Herb, if Herb was scared of a man, he would pay him.
Yeah.
If he wasn't, then he didn't. Never shorted Dr. Death because he didn't want Dr. Death beating the shit out of him here.
His doors were not Dr. Death proof.
They're not Dr. Death proof. No. He'll just rip it off, kick it off.
Real weak doors on my house.
Yeah. He'll mount you. He'll slap your willy. He'll do whatever he wants to. You don't want that happening.
Jerk me off a bar stool.
Jerk you right off on a bar stool. So he ends up back in WCW as Terry Gordy comes back in with him, and they come back in for a little while. March of 1995 here, he has another issue here with Japan, and this is 1995 is when he gets clean from drugs. That's right.
Oh, great.
He says he's clean from drugs. He thanks Giant Baba in Japan for helping him, and also his faith and everything else, and the fact that he's still close with his ex-wife. So close that they'll end up remarrying and divorcing again.
Oh, dear God. My worst nightmare.
Isn't that horrible? Jesus Christ.
I could
Again with this?
Couldn't be me.
You're not getting another alimony. I'll tell you that now.
I've learned my lesson.
Oh, man. He also appears in ECW in 1997 a bit. Extreme Championship Wrestling, if you don't know there. He comes in, does a few shots, beats up Axl Rotten a little bit, and then he ends up losing a match to Raven, who was the champion at the time.
The Raven?
And Raven. Yeah, Raven, that guy. Yeah. So March of 1997, He is at the Laredo International Airport.
Where is that, Texas?
Texas, yeah, Texas. He's there, and inspectors found what they describe as undeclared pharmaceutical drugs here. Yes, and him and his two companions, Michael Joseph Geary, who's his buddy that we've been getting quotes from there, and another guy, Paul Gregory Ferrer of Denton. They're all charged with possession of a controlled substance, a felony, and released. Drugs seized included 80 boxes of Neopercodan,
Jesus,
17 boxes of Valium, 16 boxes of Halcyon. Halcyon is fucking strong. Halcyon's strong. That's what the wrestlers...
That's what Jeffrey Dahmer used to knock people out, isn't it?
That's what wrestlers used to use to knock each other out. They used to do that to women all the time. They'd put it in their drinks. It was like, again, Arrested Development. It was like Job's Forget Me Now. That's what it was, though. So the 15 boxes of Temagesic.
I don't
know what that is. 26 boxes of Darvon and 8 boxes of Ritrovil.
And these are boxes. How many is in a box?
I don't know.
Right?
That's a shitload. That's a lot of stuff either way. If you have 80 boxes of something, even if there's one per box, that's 80 pills.
If you've got a Halcyon, you're a dangerous person.
16 boxes seems like too much, right? Too much?
Yeah.
He explains it this way, quote, "The second time I was busted while working for All Japan. To cope with my divorce, I got high with some friends in Dallas prior to a tour in Japan. When I arrived at customs in Japan, they searched my wallet and found the roach of a joint. I had forgotten all about it. I was immediately deported. Since I had embarrassed and disgraced the profession, Japan suspended me for 1 year. Wrestling over there is taken seriously, it's like a national pastime. Yeah. It's like sumo and wrestling and baseball. Those are the three big sports. Fortunately, I met Giant Baba in California 6 months later. I deeply apologized for what I had done, and he took care of me and brought me back to All Japan. So still got busted again, a shitload of stuff at the airport. Now, this 1999, we'll talk about this briefly because we did an entire Patreon on this subject. So... the Brawl for All in WWF. We talked about it on other episodes and literally did an hour and 10-minute long Patreon. So if you want to hear about that, go ahead. But I'll give you very quickly. WWF decided to patreon.com/crimeinsports.
That's where it is.
WWF decided it would be a good idea to have, or Vince Russo more accurately, decided it would be a good idea to have all of their wrestlers, not all of them, but a group of their wrestlers perform in a shoot fight tournament.
Right.
Really fight this time. And, do all of that. They just hoped that the guys that they wanted to win would win and not some mid-card nobody guy win, which is what ended up happening. The guy who won was Bart Gunn, who was not a guy they expected or wanted to win, but was a guy who was a boxer, was an amateur boxer for years, and was a rodeo cowboy. So a tough fucking son of a bitch. That's a tough bastard, you know what I mean? A boxer who does rodeo cowboy shit. That's a tough man. So that's who ended up winning because he knew how to fight. He knew how to box. That's in a boxing match. It's not. This isn't like a UFC type thing. They have boxing gloves on.
Right.
So, I mean, in a boxing match, you have to... It's who can box the best, you know what I mean? So they bring in Dr. Death, who boxing is not his strong point anyway, but they figure he's tough enough. Hopefully he'll win the whole thing. And they tell him that the plan is, hopefully you win this thing, and then we're going to have you do a 6-month program with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right.
And it's going to be, Steve Williams versus Steve Williams here, and it's going to be...
Awesome.
Those two are two big, tough son of a bitches. So people want to...
Steve Williams from Oklahoma and Steve Williams from Oklahoma.
from Texas.
Is he from Texas?
I think the other one's from Texas.
Stone Cold? Who knows? I don't care.
I think he was born in Texas, wasn't he?
Shit.
Thought so. I don't really care either. Fuck him, but maybe. Who knows? So eventually, though, obviously, Dr. Death ends up, he wins his first fight, then gets knocked out by Bart Gunn because he tore his hamstring and his glute muscle. He tore every muscle in his leg. And he was trying to fight the rest of the fight on one leg, and you can't box on one leg.
No.
You absolutely can't. You all of your punching power comes from your legs and your balance. So you're just, he was out there ready to get killed. So Bart Gunn ended up knocking him out, and he was injured. His whole leg was all fucked up and everything else. He said, I was knocked out in the second round of the tournament. Though I had torn a hamstring and a torn butt muscle, I never gave up. With my hands down by my side, I got back up to my feet. He did try. I got to give him credit. Most people would have went, well, fight's over. I can't walk anymore. So he kept going. He said, in 1998, I tore my hamstring and thigh muscle at the WWF's Brawl for All against Bart Gunn. To get back into wrestling shape, I went to Dory Funk's dojo. While there, I was the first guy to do a 10-minute Broadway with Kurt Angle. So he was the first guy to kind of help break Kurt Angle into the business because they're both amateur guys and all that. So he thought that was pretty cool. So he said the initial plan to have Dr. Death be this guy, you know, was going to come in and be the baddest, toughest guy in the world and kick the shit out of Stone Cold. They kind of had to lose that at that point because we watched him get limping around, getting knocked out. So that's not going to work anymore. At one point, Vince McMahon came up with a gimmick for him. Well, rather than that, he's that guy. We've ruined Dr. Death.
Yeah.
Destroyed him. Let's put him under a mask and pretend he's Japanese. What do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they put him in like the whole Japanese outfit and with a mask and pretend he's Japanese then. And it was ridiculous. So he had Bruce Pritchard, who's got the podcast there, as his manager. And Pritchard was asked to wear face paint and act as if he was Japanese, you know, speaking for Steve Williams. This is what Steve Williams. Yeah, they've done this a million times in the past, by the way. The Orient Express in the early 90s was like a Hawaiian guy and a white guy from Michigan or some shit. Like it was, they do this all the time. So it didn't really work out very well. On Monday Night Raw, February 22nd, 1999, Williams debuted as the mask gimmick by attacking Bart Gunn.
Yeah.
There you go. And they said that he threw him off and he did all this shit, but that's the only time you're going to see that gimmick, though. It goes away after that. So
really?
That's it. Then he starts being on a storyline with Jim Ross, being Jim Ross's bodyguard at that point. You'd see him come out and do that, which leads to him then going to WCW. And when they did the Jim Ross character of, you know, of him with Bell's palsy and all that kind of shit, they hired Steve Williams to stand next to him. Okay. So it would look like he did in WWF. So that's how that goes on there. Yeah, he was very disappointed in the WWF thing because he thought after all these years, this was his big break. This was going to be, he said this 6 months with Steve Austin is going to be the most money he's ever made in his life, all at once. You know what I mean? So he was very excited, and then it all just, poof, was gone. So that's tough. That is tough,
bummer,
man.
yeah.
For some dumb shit that should have never happened.
Right.
He really is, out of everybody in this tournament, it really didn't hurt anybody else that bad.
Yeah.
It fucked his career up irreparably.
Really?
It absolutely did. It absolutely did. It fucked him up. He was supposed to be this invincible guy, and you put boxing gloves on him and put him in the ring with a boxer, a guy who knows how to box, and then he tears his hamstring up, and you let him get knocked out in the ring. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Destroyed him. So, I don't know. September 18th, 1999, he's got another problem here. He's arrested for child support charges.
Oh,
here.
no. He's not paying?
Yes. No. Everybody says nice guy. No matter what, everybody loves him. Deputy Marshal Carla Cooper said he's a nice guy, absolutely a gentleman. He signed a lot of autographs for courtroom or courthouse employees.
I'd charge him some money so I can pay this fucking child support.
No shit. He needs to pay $18,000. He failed to pay a lump sum of $18,000 and monthly child support payments of $811 ordered in 1995 during the divorce by an Oklahoma court. $18,000 in a lump sum. I don't know if he owed a bunch of money or what it was, but yeah, $811 a month after that.
Steep.
Yeah, said his client never married them. This is not Tammy. This is another. Yeah, this is the one where he denies the paternity claim. He says this isn't my kid, but they've been making him pay child support for 4 years, so I assume this probably is your kid. I don't think this is the other one he was talking about, or else it wouldn't have cost him $100,000. So he says, but then he says this, quote, in early 1998, I was slapped with a paternity lawsuit. This deadbeat dad case made national and international news, but it was from 3 years ago. You were ordered by a court to pay the shit 3 years before that. So that doesn't make sense. It was in the USA Today and other major media headlines. There I was, an international wrestling superstar, headed to the WWF for my biggest payout ever, but all of that was overshadowed by me being portrayed as an irresponsible father. So, yeah, that's not great. But, you don't feel too bad for him. I mean, what the fuck? People think of a wrestler, they think he's probably a much bigger scumbag than that. They're like, oh, child support, at least he didn't beat her up. I mean, that, good for you. I mean, with the brain damage and the steroids and Who knows?
Sometimes you got to raise these kids for 18 years. We're gonna assume that over the next 18 years, I'm not going to have some financial hardship.
No shit. So we don't know that. So, and if it's not the father and he's being dragged through all this, you got to feel bad for him at that point. Yeah. I mean, you got to feel bad for him, but not nearly as bad as you feel for Steve Williams, COO of leading EV Cargo's global forwarding division in the United Kingdom.
That is.
Steve Williams, president at Williams Jewelers in Englewood, Colorado.
Oh.
Steve Williams, partner and head of design services at CIVE in Houston, Texas. Okay. Steve Williams, retired director and supply chain management at Southern Company, which is a power company in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And, of course, Steve Williams, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's another wrestler, obviously. So he talks about his third arrest here. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Quote, "The third and final time that I was arrested because of drugs was my All Japan tenure. After my second divorce from the same woman, I went to Mexico with some of my friends. We partied and had a grand time in Nuevo Laredo. As we headed back to the States, I was busted with illegally purchased prescription drugs. The incident was on all the newspapers, including USA Today." He's obsessed with USA Today.
That's the big one for him.
I think it's because he stays in a lot of hotels. When you stay in a lot of hotels, they always have one
there.
sitting out. So that's what you see. And it's folded. So if you're above the fold, you're like, shit, I really fucked up. He said, "I spent all night in jail. Mexico's judicial system operates differently than that of the U.S. Though through much negotiation and diplomacy, I was released after paying a major $10,000 fine." So another time. So he's bad at borders is his problem. He doesn't realize that they're pretty stingy with the borders, and they tend to find stuff in customs a lot of times. So, every once in a while here.
They tend to run those bags through x-rays and shit.
It happens sometimes here. It happens. So he goes back to All Japan here, wrestling, and from 2000 through like 2003, and he does a lot with that. Again, he tags up with Vader. Remember Vader from the 90s there? Tags up with him, and is their world champions for a while there. So 2003, he's involved with an indie named Major League Wrestling, which is in the Mid-Atlantic region. There's a lot of guys that do that. And he also wrestled for a few other indies around there. They did one of the first professional wrestling events in China, and he won their title there. So he did that. March 14th, 2004, he decides to go into MMA for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, I guess a payday would probably be why.
40 years old?
It was Japan's K1 promotion. Well, he's a big deal in Japan. He's considered pretty tough, so they can probably get a good payday out of him. But, he has one fight. He fights Alexei Ignashov, who's a fighter here. And this fight only goes 22 seconds, and Steve is knocked out with knees.
Damn it.
So, it doesn't really work out all that well. He is 40 years old. Oh, and we'll tell you something else that happened. Also. A few days before the match, he was told that he had throat cancer.
Before the match?
Before the match, but it was only a few days away, so he had to go through with it because he needed the payday, and it was already on the book. So you can't really concentrate on fighing if you just got told you have cancer. Plus, you have cancer, so, it's tough.
Bitch, man.
So, yes, he's got throat cancer, they tell him. And he said that he had a persistent cold, and he ended up having a golf ball-sized tumor in his throat. That was the problem. Yeah, so in March 2004, pretty much right after that match, he undergoes surgery for his throat cancer, and he said it's probably been around for over a year, they said. It's been, building up and building up. He's still appearing in wrestling shows and doing all this type of thing. He is declared cancer-free in 2005.
Great.
And he has his return match in August of 2005. And then problem is, though, it comes back.
Really?
And it's so fucking sad because everybody really, really does like the guy. Unless you fuck with him in a bar or something, he treats everybody nicely. Everybody says he treats people with respect. He treats rookies. He's a detriment to himself only and anybody who would be dumb. But he's the type of guy, if you're stupid enough
to fuck with somebody that big,
to yell at somebody like that in a bar, you deserve to get the shit beat out of you because, I'd walk to the other side of the fucking room if I saw this guy coming, just in case he felt like getting into it with somebody. I don't want to fight this fucking guy. He's a monster.
Yeah.
So that's on you. You know what I mean? So at this point, he's it's really hard because there's videos of him out there from like 2008 where he is in the wrestling ring training guys wrestling. And he's like doing a demo of like training and how he trains people. And he's got the voice thing up to his throat where he talks like that. He's got that going. You're like, oh, Dr. Death. It's just so fucking sad, man. And he looks.
It makes the Dr. Death character real scary, though.
It's scary. Yeah, right? No shit. He's got a voice box he talks with. But it's crazy. He's got, he withers away. You can see it. The original surgery was 10 hours of surgery, too.
Shit.
It was absolutely fucking horrible, man. It was really bad stuff. So he talks a lot about it, but I got to be honest, man, it's depressing. It's really fucking depressing. I'm not going to read long paragraphs in his book about having cancer because it's just depressing. We've had fun so far.
Yeah.
It's sad enough that he had cancer, and that really sucks. I don't really want to make it. I don't know what the cause is. He talks later on about. He never says it because he talks later on about how he, tells his. He says that he tried to stay. He doesn't get it because he said he tried. Oh, at the time he was trying to stay away from like smoky bars and thick shit because his throat hurt. But he talks to his kids and tells them to like stay away from tobacco products and all that sort of thing. But I can't really figure out what his deal is about it because I don't think he was a smoker based on
a smoker.
Well, based on all of it, a wrestler and a football player, that's, you know what I mean? Not a real smoker. When he was in college, didn't even want to smoke weed because he didn't want to, like, hurt his lungs. So that doesn't seem weird. I don't know if maybe he chewed tobacco.
Yeah.
Because that seems more likely. Got a lot of guys like that, do that. He said the type of cancer I had is called T4 cancer. T4 is the most devastating one can get in the lymph nodes and throat. With T4, the cancer extends outside the larynx by invading the thyroid cartilage and into the esophagus or soft tissue of the neck. And there was a tumor the size of a golf ball on the side of my neck.
Oh, my God.
So that's a lot of fun here. He said I was blown away. It was a lot, and he was just, they basically had to cut his head off to take this tumor out. And he said that figured he was dying. He said, well, he did smoke cigarettes because he said, I started smoking cigarettes after my first divorce thinking that would help me cope. I also chewed tobacco and dipped snuff from the age of 12 until I hit 30.
Bingo.
As a jock, chewing tobacco is part of the practice field and locker room, and it is. That, especially back then, it was just normal. It seemed like everyone was doing it at the time, and I thought nothing about the health risks. So, but that's still not. I mean, Christ, his divorce, it was like 6 years, been smoking for 6 years.
Yeah.
And he had quit smoking. He had quit doing chew 12 years ago. So, I mean, who knows? He might just be predisposed to, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of different, and it also can linger and come back later and come out. So who the fuck knows? It's very, very, very fucking sad though here. His whole family is, with him as like I said, he'll be better and then worse. And then after like 2007, it seems to really kind of go downhill. Really? And it's really hard. He goes to he comes out in the media though and talks about it and really, tries to act like he's okay. Sure. Basically, he tries to say that, if it could happen to me, look at me, I'm a big tough guy. It could happen to anybody. Yeah. Make sure to keep an eye on cancer and all that kind of thing. So, I mean, I guess that's really great to do, but that's about all you can do at that point. So everybody who likes him, everybody who knows him comes out, all his coaches and ex-players and hundreds of people. There's articles about him and what a great guy he is. And, his ex-wrestling coach who hooked him up with Bill Watts said, down-to-earth sweet guy. Despite all the bravado, Steve Williams is a very sweet human being. He said, he's always all smiles and all that kind of shit. So, yeah, he's talking about that. Steve goes through a lot in his book about having the cancer and all the doctor visits, and it's brutal, man. So he does, though, like I said, after he makes a comeback in wrestling a little bit and then kind of sits out of the comeback and he gets his treatments, and when he's feeling okay enough to wrestle, he'll wrestle, but he'll make appearances still because he's still, people want to go look at him.
Sure, he's a draw.
Well, in 2006, he doesn't have health insurance either because he's a wrestler. Independent.
No.
1099, baby. That's how that goes.
No.
And he accumulated $300,000 in medical bills so far. So they tried to help him. WWE gives him a trainer for their developmental talent. And that's where I saw that video from. Yeah. And he would work the occasional house shows as a referee. It's like a guest referee in 2006. He also made an appearance on SmackDown in 2006, which he was signed to help train an up-and-comer there and all that sort of shit. So he made a few appearances on OVW as well, which is Ohio Valley Wrestling. In 2007, he is inducted into the NCAA Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Great.
So, yeah, he's the George Tragos and Lou Thez Professional Wrestling inductee is what he is here.
Riddled with cancer, the poor bastard.
Riddled with cancer, yeah. 2009, he says he's retired, basically, at that point. He makes his last public appearance in wrestling terms at a WrestleFest convention on December 12th, 2009. And he's having problems. Jim Ross said, I received an email from Steve Dr. Death Williams, and apparently cancer has returned to once again challenge my dear pal. Cancer returned to his stoma, and Doc has been undergoing chemotherapy treatment, which is the only way this matter can be addressed. So talks about that. It's really it's difficult, and he says Doc has some limited wrestling engagements upcoming and is still working for Southwest Airlines at the Denver airport.
What?
I don't know if he's working a counter. I don't know what he's doing for
handler. Can't do that.
I don't know what the fuck he's doing, but I mean, he's working at the Denver airport in 2009.
Oh, man.
That's December 12th is his appearance he makes. December 29th, 2009, he dies in Denver. Yep, he dies in Denver at 49 years old.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's fucking sad, man. It's very, very sad. Yep, he's shit. I mean, it's obviously tons of people come out and give these eulogies in the press, and he said that there's quotes from him saying he was fighting and fighting and fighting, and he was hoping that his friends were trying to help him raise money for an artificial voice box.
Yeah,
and he said, I'm hoping to have the money by Christmas. It would be a heck of a Christmas present.
Fuck, he didn't even make Christmas.
He didn't even make it he didn't make it. So that's brutal. He made the 29th. He made it.
Oh, he didn't
make it to the new year that year, though. So he was living with his mother in Lakewood at the time of his death. And, he was cremated. And they didn't say what they did with his ashes, but people have said that they were scattered around the Rocky Mountains where he wanted it to be scattered. So that's a story of, a great legitimate athlete, obviously, and a big star in wrestling and a big star in all sorts of shit. This is a guy who nowadays, if this guy existed, he'd be a big MMA star, I believe, was what he would be, probably. You know what I mean?
You think so?
And I believe so. Yeah, professional wrestling wouldn't be for him nowadays.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be. He's too tough of a guy, I think, now. I don't think he's pretty enough. I mean, there's guys that aren't pretty, but I just think he's too wild for wrestling nowadays. I think he'd be a big-time MMA fighter, I believe, because just being a big, tough son of a bitch, if he started doing that style and using his hands more when he was 22, I think he'd be crazy.
If he was really good on the college field, he may have gone just to the NFL or to a practice field or something. There's probably more money in that than combat sports.
Probably, but when you get cut from the generals, where else do you go at that point? Dan Reeves said he doesn't want you, and you take a year off, and I could see it. It's tough. It's tough, but everybody, that is Dr. Death, Steve Williams,
man.
And it's just a wild life, man. He lived in the crazy times of wrestling, where you would have to fight your way back to the locker room and kick the fucking door off the hinges to get back in,
and drugs around the planet,
and hit that butter bong all the time and everything else, and all the butter was missing.
Hilarious.
That's so fucking funny. So there you go, everybody. That's Dr. Death Steve Williams. If you like that show or any of the shows, damn it, if you haven't done it yet, get on whatever app you're listening on. Give us 5 stars. It helps out a lot. I know it seems stupid, but it actually does help out. Helps drive us up the charts. Takes 30 seconds, and it's absolutely free. Right. One thing that isn't free, but is goddamn well worth the money, Patreon. Patreon.com/crimeinsports. That is worth the money. Anybody, the only amount of money you need is $5. $5 a month. A cup of coffee, everybody, will get you not only the entire back catalog of bonus episodes, which there's a couple hundred of them, but it gets you new episodes every other week. 2 new ones, 1 crime and sports, 1 small town murder. You get it all.
Yeah.
This week, what you're going to get for your money is for crime and sports, we're going to talk about theme park disasters, which is a lot of sadness and fun, though. That's crazy. We've talked about defunct theme parks. Now we're going to talk about just horrible theme park disasters. There's been countless amounts of them. We could do this. You could do a whole show just on that.
When the
theme
horror
park disaster show.
When the horror felt by a roller coaster is justified.
That's what I'm talking about. Then for small town murder, we're going to talk about some of the wildest prison riots we've ever heard of. Because that last episode we did made me think of that. So we're definitely going to talk about prison riots and all that sort of thing and some crazy shit there. That's patreon.com/crime and sports. And you'll get a shout out in just a second as well here. They're coming up. First, though, you definitely also want to follow us on social media at Crime and Sports on Facebook and Twitter, at Small Town Murder on Instagram. And you also want to go to shutupandgivememurder.com and get your tickets for all the live shows coming up. A bunch of them are sold out. There are tickets available for Small Town Murder in Chicago, August the 12th. And then also after that, we have, Dallas, D.C., Atlanta, Charlotte, Philly are the only ones left with tickets. Everything else is sold out. So get on there, get your tickets, and also get your goddamn shout out on Patreon. And when does that shout out happen, Jimmie? That's right, goddamn now. Jimmie, hit me with the names of these people like a butter bong hit right to my face.
This week's executive producers are Jordan Bennett, of course, obviously.
Hey, Jordan, our girl.
Margaret
like
Thatcher's dank meat sleeve. That's disgusting. Why would you do that to me?
It's a bad visual.
And Michaela, happy birthday. It doesn't narrow it down very much, Michaela. Except that it's from DeLuca. Do you know DeLuca? Are you Michaela? Or do you know a person named DeLuca? They wish you a happy birthday.
From somebody else.
Other producers this week are Fanny Pfister, you son of a bitch.
Course.
Peyton Meadows, Dixon, my ass.
Hey, very nice.
Oh, boy. Why do they do this? Does that make you feel better? Sweet Pete, Gary Friedman, Janice Hill, Gorilla Monsoon's comb over. Shitta Perlman has relapsed, James. She's back on the rosinitis. And we're really pulling for her. Rupert Pumpkins, Lizzie B, Lynn Ash, Sandy Minge. Oh, yeah, of course. Caitlin Wellborn, Jan Lewis, Kathleen Cox, Tucker Smith, Diana Ortiz, Caressa Hill, Grant Richard, Anne Marie Marquis. What? Patrick Badizzi.
Not that, probably.
Fasfer, Chase Applegate, Holly Royce, Caitlin Dornan, Carrie Elwell, Sydney Irvine, Jess Vixen, Jenny Fernandez, Whitney Smith, Bethany Morin, De Bushmeister, Daryl Hunt, Maria Saldino, Jessica Nyhill, Neil, Ezekiel Soiree, Katie McGarry, Jesse Goodhue, Brooke Sandstorm, that's real. Amanda Cook,
cool name.
Yeah, Barrett Thornton, that's a cowboy name. Holly Trexler, Randy Faleo. Oh boy, be careful with that one. Justin Reynolds, Alexandra Moody, Zana Roth, Daniel Valdivinos, Jody Orlando, Jennifer Morgan, Boston Hensley, Jeremiah Murphy, Kyle Benjamin, Jason with no last name, Brenda Wegner, Kyle Yoon, Jeff Brown, Christy Durham, Kristen Wells, Melody Potter, McKelly? That's McKell, right? Paige, Daniel Brucato, Heather Bellinger, Austin Witters, Honora with no last name, Sonny Palmidier? I don't know. Jeff Schaefer, Danielle Cantrell. Crazy Kiwi in the Land of Oz, Greg Eckler, Sarah with no last name, Lindsay White, Christopher Miller, Peachy Nemo, Lacey Keyser, Mary Hudson, Kelsey with no last name, Brian McDavitt, Dan Peruzzi, Jennifer Swazachick. What? Swazu? Suchick?
Yeah, all of that.
Aaron Keeley, Jolene Pritchard, Heather Hunoff, Whitney Bernard, Emily Casey, Sky Emiliano, Trisha L. Justin with no last name. Tanzania Lucas. Kaylee Baresh. Wendy Bagneski. Bev Tremblay. Nathan with no last name. Kim with no last name. Japcat. That feels awful. Sean McAdams. Eric Everett. Stephen Sowers. Jacob Olenberger. Paul McGreevy. Crystal Moyer, Brandon Wilburn, Ratchy J, Julia Rose, Jeannie, Colleen Crowley, Jess Badeau, Bodot. Okay. John Kirby, Susan Rez, Jane Comtois.
All right, fine.
All right. Kelly Smith, Faye Youssef, Faye. Marina with no last name. Marina, no last name. Matthew DeRizio, Susan Wilson, Francesca Brim, Depolar. All right. Gay Nolan, Brock Skaggs, Cassie Costello, Flat Woods, Nancy Bonilla, Victoria Walsh, Ari Van de Graaf, Sonia Silvers, Jenny Lynn Warren, Jason Kozian, Eddie Fox, Sarah Bradburn, Kim McGugan, Madeline M, Toby Armstrong, Sydney Roberts, Leah Jane Russell, Leah Jane Russell, Lisa with no last name, David Dorn, Adam Toplass, Becca Haas, Flexbert Hamilton, Mary Clark with no, Mary Clark is her name, Penelope Carter, Ron Reader, Sean Dennehy, Sky with no last name, Callie, Grossheim, MSM.
Damn it, grow a pair.
Grossum, Callie, Stevie Barr, Tanner Holmgren, McKenna Barajas, Lauren with no last name, Catherine Kruger, Randy Stone, Jesse Webb, Jacqueline Tinsley, Ryan Chapdelaine, that's right, Benjamin Fruhoff,
I have no idea what that person's name is.
Gigi Lamb, Joseph Iramo, John Holyfield maybe, Zachary Cherakovich.
Cherakovich. Yeah, those are the same thing.
Dean Porter, John Duarte, Renee Murphy, Hope N., Joseph San Juan, Miriam McAdams, Kim Earl, Raj Panjaki, Pankachaki, Pankhania. Raj, wow. I'm never going to get that right. I really apologize.
Wow.
Wilson Hakapoko, Hakopa. Haley Schollhorn, Anna Leighton, and all of our patrons. You guys are unbelievable. Truly, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, so much from the bottom of our hearts for all that you do for us. Thank you for everything. Hope you love the bonus episodes. We'll keep pumping them out, and you keep listening to them. That's the deal there. So if you want to get a hold of us on social media, like us as human beings, very easy to do that. Head over to shutupandgivememurder.com, where all the links are to everything. There's links there. Click on them, follow us, do whatever you want. Don't if you don't want to. We don't give a shit. We don't care. Live from the Crime and Sports Studios. We will see you next week. If you like Crime and Sports, you can listen early and ad-free now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Prime members can listen early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Before you go, tell us about yourself by filling out a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.